Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Mayor, everyone is here.
Very well. For the invocation this evening will be Barbara Dahl, a member of our staff, who is also an ordained minister. Barbara.
All right, let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Lord, we know that things are happening beyond our control in this world. Help to keep us safe and guide us to do the right thing with kindness in our hearts. During these difficult and trying times, please bring peace to our confusion, joy to our sadness, and hope in our hearts. Bless our community and unite us together. Give us the wisdom, direction, and sensitivity to the business and proceedings here before us tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands
one
nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is like Saturday.
Did I say in unison? I don't know. Approval of the minutes? Approval of the minutes. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Mayor, move to approve the minutes of July 6th.
Removed by Councilmember Coombs and seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Marcano to approve the minutes of July 6, 2020. Is there opposition? Do we need a vote? Would the clerk please call the roll?
I have a correction on the minutes.
Oh, very well. Okay. Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So for the July 6th minutes, I just need to make a correction on page 43, which is where on the last paragraph of my comments, it says she read current comments where residents were asking if they could secede. It should be secede from the city, not succeed. And Spring Parker or Centennial, which demonstrated how upset people were. So it's SECEDE. Thank you.
Very well.
We'll make that change. Thank you, Councilmember Bergen.
Further discussion? Can we have amend the motion to add in July 20th, 2020?
Mayor, they do need to be voted on as separate.
They need to be separate? Okay, very well. Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the minutes for approval of the minutes for July 6, 2020?
As amended.
As amended.
Yep. Councilmember Coombs.
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
The minutes of July 6th are adopted as amended.
Very well. Need a motion on the approval of the minutes for July 20th, 2020.
Mayor, move to approve minutes of July 20th.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Bergen to approve the minutes of July 20th. Would the clerk please call the roll? Are there any amendments or corrections? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Gruber.
Mayor, I have a,
Yes.
sorry, I have a change.
Very well.
It's on page 6, which is page 15 of our packet. The third paragraph. It's Councilmember Gruber's talking, and there's a sentence that says, he stated 3 council members then sent an investigator in February, or hired, he stated 3 council members then sent a letter requesting an independent investigation, which prompted the firing of the person hired by Mr. Twombly. The next sentence says, he expressed concerns related to those council members who are actively promoting the idea that Elijah McClain was murdered. And how that's worded implies that the 3 council members that sent the letter requesting the independent investigation were also promoting the idea that Elijah McClain was murdered. That wasn't what was said, and I went back and listened to the video, so I think that needs to be clarified.
Well, I need, do you have specific language?
I mean, I would just say he expressed concerns that other council members were actively promoting the idea that Elijah McClain was murdered. Because when you use the word those council members, it refers to the council members that were already brought up in the prior sentence.
Okay.
I support the change and keep it with my amendment or my motion
Okay.
to move the minutes.
Very well. Is okay? We further discussion, corrections. Seeing none, the question before us is the approval of the minutes of 20th of July 2020 as corrected. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Modio.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Hills.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Minutes of July 20th are approved unanimously as amended.
Very well. Ceremony tonight. We have a ceremony to honor the service of our clerk. Tonight marks City Clerk Steve Ruger's final City Council meeting. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank him for his service to our city, to the city of Aurora. Steve has been a tremendous asset to this city, working tirelessly for very long hours, often until the middle of the night. Actually, it should read until the next morning. He's done so with patience and a smile. We'll miss his always upbeat demeanor. I want to wish him all the best personally and professionally, and to thank him for all of his work for the city of Aurora. I'll open it up to any city council members for further comment.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Thank you. Steve, I really wish I could see you in person. I just want to recognize how much work you and I'm sorry, my dogs are barking as I'm talking, that you and I have done, whether it was the ethics ordinance, different appointments and questions I'd have on process or campaign finance reform. You are such a smart, intelligent person who just had a wealth of information and references to what best practices were, but you're also incredibly kind and patient. And it's been a privilege to know you and work with you. And I look forward to keeping in touch with the great things that you'll be doing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Further comments?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, I also wish I could be there in person to say, best wishes to you, Steve. You've been just tremendous in terms of working through these challenging times and having to do the virtual and learn how to coordinate everything. I have really enjoyed working with you over the last few years, and you're always pleasant and kind and professional. And I wish you really the very best. And we know that you'll come back to Colorado. And I also very much appreciate the fact that you have delivered my packets to me. And I am really concerned who is going to take that up. But I really wish you well, and please let us know when you're back in town. Thank you so much. You're just a phenomenal person.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Mayor?
Councilmember Hiltz? I'm sorry. Councilmember Rosens.
Thank you. Steve, I can't believe you're leaving. Your next employer, which is your old employer, is a very lucky person. You know, we never knew when you were upset, if you ever were upset. You never complained. I think of all you have gone through in your short tenure in Aurora, and it's just amazing. You know, you went through an election. You helped the candidates. You went through changes in candidates and changes in reporting, and all with a smile on your face, you know, and you said, we'll get through it. I'll get through it. It's okay. So, man, what a pleasant person. And boy, we're going to miss you. We're really going to miss you, but I wish you the best. And I know you're going back to a job that you want because you knew what that job was before you left. So anyway, going to miss you, but safe travels and God bless you.
Thank you, council member. Appreciate that.
Further comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Council member McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Steve, I also want to echo what everyone else has said. We're going to miss you, your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion for public service. You were a great help when I was learning how to actually run last year. And I want to thank you for helping educate everyone who ran last year and also for your guidance on a lot of the initiatives that we're working on this year. You will be sorely missed, and I wish you the best.
Further comments? Councilmember Lawson.
Steve, I just want to say you're going to truly be missed. You are like a team player, dedicated person. You're so kind and so nice. And one thing I remember about you is that I didn't know someone stayed up as late as I did. Last year when I was working on my campaign finance report, I wasn't expecting for anybody to respond. And you wrote me back at 2 o'clock in the morning and I was like, what? So it's nice to know that you have insomnia like me sometimes and you're just a dedicated person. I'm going to truly, truly miss you and your smile and just all of your just enthusiasm. So you're truly going to be missed.
Thanks, council member. I'll be thinking about you late at night when I'm awake.
Further comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So, Steve, I just want to really thank you for all of the ways that you have been incredibly helpful and thoughtful and informative from when I was a citizen to a candidate to now a council member. And your dedication to making sure that the members of the public get heard, even when it means that you have to be very creative and do things that are really outside the normal scope of your job. And as everyone has mentioned, you do it with kindness and poise and bring an energy that I think will be sorely missed and that we will be hard put to find someone that can bring everything to the job that you have. So thank you.
Thank you, council member.
And best of luck moving forward.
Further discussion, further comments?
Mayor.
Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber.
Steve, I want to thank you as well. You've been a tremendous support to me, to the council. You've always had a smile. You've always been there for us. You've always been able to answer questions correctly, which is very, very important. So I want to thank you for that. And I heard a rumor that you're going to still be consulting. So if we get 300 or 400 emails, you're going to read them on tape for us so we won't forget.
And here I thought everyone was tired of hearing me read emails, but okay.
Further comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Hiltz.
That was Mario, but I have a comment.
I'm sorry.
Done.
I'm sorry. Who is it? Councilmember Mario?
Mayor, you need our videos up.
I do. I'm trying to learn the voice.
Can we help him since Steve is leaving?
I'm going to be in trouble now. I'm going to be in trouble now.
Steve, I just wanted to echo everything that everyone has said. It's been a pleasure to work with you, your sense of professionalism, integrity, and just willingness to meet us where we're at, these crazy council members. It's not an easy job, but I'm thankful to have had your leadership in these times. And I know we hope that you stay in touch, and best of luck in your next endeavor.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Thank you. I think everyone's kind of hit the high note, so I'll keep it short, but I think it's safe to say that we all know that Aurora is not going to be the same without you, and we're better off for having you here for the time that we did, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to what everyone else said, but two things that I want to just point out that I appreciate about you, Steve. One, you're always really quick to respond, which I really appreciate, and the answers are accurate. But the other thing is, you're always positive, and just a pleasure to be around, which I really appreciate, because I know sometimes this job and the city can be stressful, and you make it less so. So we will miss you. So good luck in your next position.
Thank you, council member. Appreciate that.
Any comments from the clerk? Any further comments?
No, I will miss you all tremendously. It really has been my pleasure to be part of Aurora. And if this wasn't just such a tremendous opportunity, I'd still be here with you. And I plan to stay in touch and keep abreast of everything going on here. And I appreciate the comments, and I will miss you all very much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Seeing no further comments, I would ask that public invited to be, is there any opposition? Are there any objections to moving public invited to be heard to the end of the meeting?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
Just, we already discussed this. We're in the process of addressing this, but until people know what to expect, I don't believe we should make a change that significant.
And this is for this meeting. Okay. Further opposition to moving public invited to be heard to the end of the meeting.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Just speaking up to voice opposition.
Okay. Is there further opposition?
Councilmember Hiltz.
Councilmember Murillo.
Okay.
Johnston.
Gardner.
Lawson.
Okay. I believe 6 members have risen in opposition. And so we will proceed with public invited to be heard.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll give us 1 second. We'll get squared away.
Okay, the first public comment is from Ann Yelt. APD is a terror on our community. Reform is not enough. Training is not enough. We must defund. We must stop pretending that they are the answer to our problems. Social workers, housing, food security, and I could go on. Those are the issues. We work best as a society when we lift each other up. We have an obligation to do better for our fellow humans. As leaders in the community, show us the way. The next one is from Shannon Gus. What's wrong with our police department that they think it's okay? We need culture change and we need it now. The next one is from John Barber. I was alarmed by the agenda regarding the Metro District discussion. We've been promised by the city to have Metro District town hall meetings since before the virus shut down. We had one virtual meeting where the city allowed a consultant for developers to explain to us, the citizens, what Metro Districts are and how they function. We are well aware of that, as I serve on a Metro District board. The issue is not our understanding, it's the developer's corruption, charging the homeowners the cost of infrastructure and the price of the home, and then again via the bond sold that has to be paid back by the homeowners via property tax, giving the developer the ability to double charge the homeowner and walk away with millions of dollars in over-the-top profit. The developer and their employees make up 100% of the Metro District's board. They vote to send bonds, write checks, and at their will to benefit themselves at the cost of the homeowners, and no one's holding them accountable. Now we have the city council looking at all this corruption and approving more Metro Districts without oversight. I can only conclude that either the city council members have not investigated the issue, they do not understand it well enough to see clearly how the developers are manipulating them, or there are benefits some of the city council members receive from developers that are not transparent. Thank you for your time.
Next one's from Cheryl Brown. Please train the police officers to respond to blacks in traffic stops the same way that they do when they stop whites. Instead of asking, why does this happen to black people over and over again? I want to know what would happen if police officers treated black people, in this case, children, the way they treat white people's children. And let's have some transparency in training. If this was standard procedure, we, the public, should know so we can tell you to use our tax dollars differently.
The next one is from Jay Warbox. Dear Aurora City Council, this weekend the Aurora Police mistakenly pulled over a car they thought was stolen. Their treatment of the woman and children in the car outraged me. 4 young girls lying face down on the street while male police officers are standing over them. Handguns pulled out before even verifying that they had the correct vehicle. Who does that to children? And then who expects them to trust the police in their community? These violent and brutal police confrontations must stop. What alternatives do the police need to learn? How can officers learn to use discretion, including when pulling over Black community members?
Next one's from Brenda Villegas. Mayor Kaufman and members of the City Council, according to media reports, the Aurora City Council plans to vote on whether or not to appoint a final candidate to the position of police chief at tonight's meeting. Actually, we'll hold this one off until we get to that item.
So the next one is from Robin Harmon Tatum. Something needs to change in the APD. They are out of control.
This one's from Cam Schumacher. First, I support the repeal of the pit bull ban. At a minimum, allow these shelters to adopt them out to residents once trained. Second, from some of the special meetings with the Aurora Police Department, they have intelligence on many other groups that have been showing up to peaceful protests. When groups hijack peaceful BLM vigils and protests, they hijack the support for the movement. All citizens hear in the news and from their council members is it's BLM. I think the city needs to do a better job of putting that police intelligence out to the media. If the city can't help its citizens find racial equality in all aspects of our local legal and justice system and help them fend off the distractions, we face many more decades of the same struggle. How is a Jeep allowed to barrel through crowds? When will people care more about their neighbors than property? Finally, and most importantly, APD should absolutely be ashamed of themselves for putting children on the ground face first like criminals. The police need to realize that this is exactly why many caring citizens don't want to call the police for fear they could be subjecting an innocent person to brutality or worse, they're dead. Not one of the officers there thought it was over the top or wrong. This shows it is still a cultural problem within APD.
The next one's from Chris Schmidt. Dear Mayor and Councils of the City Council of Aurora, I'm no longer a resident of Aurora, but I grew up there, and it pains me to say that I've lost what little faith I had in the city's ability to serve its citizens at this point. Weeks after announcements and investigations would be reopened in the death of Elijah McLean by the state, not the city council, or the APD. Its officers felt it necessary to put a 6-year-old Black child face down on the hot asphalt in a parking lot as she screamed for her mother. Put that on someone, context for you. Your police officers feel that it's okay to act on impulse with little or no information on a suspicion of a stolen car that clearly isn't a motorcycle during the single largest, most visible human rights movement in recorded history. I'd like each member of the council to consider the implications of those actions of the officers and the statement makes to the world. It's clear to me and millions of others around the world that this institution is irreparable. No amount of changing the rules or making sure that body cams stay on will change the rot that permeates through every fiber of the policing institution of this country. Not every cop is as callous and careless as those were. Not every cop is out to incite fear and violence, but every cop who goes to their job each day with a clear conscience in the midst of the awakening of this country is just as guilty as those who commit the acts. To that end, I also know that this letter and every other letter you will receive will fall on deaf ears of the ruling class that owes everything to the status quo. There is simply no motivation for any of you to take the necessary actions to end this because you have given the police and the police uniforms the power they will, unflinchingly, to commit acts of terrorism against their own citizens. You stood idly by as people of color were abused by the system. You fostered community programs designed to keep the poor poor and elevate the wealthy. You created and support systems which bred hatred and division like a plague through your city, because that's what everyone else was doing. Though it sounds callous, I truly hope that the blood on your hands will someday serve as the catalyst for real change. For my part, Aurora will never be the place I call home because of this pattern of symptomatic rot, and I cannot, in good conscience, stand behind what the city represents. The pleasant and warm memories I have of my childhood are tainted and by stains of the Aurora Police Department.
Next one's from Jeff Brown. Council should know that the virtual town hall on Metro districts did absolutely nothing to ease concern concerns engaged homeowners have about their pathetic manner in which the city of Aurora fails to oversee and enforce the homeowner protections in the model service plan. The virtual town hall, conducted largely by a lobbyist, was purported to be the first step. Where are the follow-up meetings we were promised? Why are you changing the service plan first? The people are calling foul. The further use of metro districts for residential development in Aurora should be banned until such time that both Title 32 and the city policy align with the best interest of current and future homeowners, just as Longmont has done. I look forward to actively campaigning for future council candidates who agree.
The next one's from Gerald Lewison. How is this situation acceptable to anyone? What if it was your child?
And this one is from Velcro Salad. There is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins, and the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright, and there the moon bird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and dark street winds and winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children, they mark, and the children, they know the place where the sidewalk ends.
The next one's from Holly Ronquillo. I'm commenting because, yet again, the Aurora Police has racially profiled people and harmed those they are supposed to protect. I am horrified at the most recent video of APD's handling of an incident involving an entire family, including young children. The family was forced face down on the hot pavement, including a 6-year-old, with some of them handcuffed. There's no justification for the harsh treatment of this family, but what's even worse, what they had done nothing wrong. I would be surprised, but I've seen APD do this kind of thing with my own eyes. As a taxpayer of Aurora, I'm angry that my tax dollars are funding police officers who continue to make mistakes that traumatize or kill and cause active harm to our community, especially people of color. I don't have a video camera ready the last time I saw APD racially profile someone, but I know that I and many others are watching and will not stop until APD is held accountable and takes appropriate action. APD's action was unacceptable. Investigate this incident. Fire officers who engage in racist actions like these. We will hold APD accountable and vote out any elected official who won't do the same. Aurora residents deserve better.
Next one's from Brittany Weeks. Hi, my name is Brittany Weeks, and I'm a senior in high school. I'm emailing you today to talk about the problems inside of the Aurora Police Department. APD put 4 children on the ground on hot pavement in a mistaken stop, and it's not the first of these types of incidents. Take Elijah McLean as another example. Walking home with a ski mask because of the mask requirements, and he gets murdered by police because he looked suspicious. This behavior by our police department is unacceptable. We shouldn't have to fear the people who protect us. We need to stand up to the ones who abuse their power. We need to change in the way we police and police our town. Thank you for your time.
The next one's from Marty Apple. I'm not fully informed about the things and certainly have policies and procedures in my own business, so I understand when they're not followed. Some inspections or reflection should happen. With the circulation of the latest incident of a stolen car and a family ending up on the street face down handcuffed, I feel pretty secure in my request that procedures must have some latitude, and this incident should put the department in a mood to inspect and reflect on what happened and how they can improve. I cannot imagine how these kids grow up, suspicious, nervous, and untrusting of police, perhaps. Downright resentful, maybe. Mistakes in police have greater consequences, but I feel like there's few missing pieces in the APD right now. Oversight and reflection of mistakes have to be a part of their processes, or else we will all be scared that this is another recipe for distrust. Please treat this family with respect and have city officials apologize, and more importantly, demonstrate to our community that the department doesn't deserve to be protested and defunded. The only way to do this is to alter your image at the public spotlight and clean up the mistakes. Come out with real policies that show intent to be better. Be better. On the verge of joining the protest, if no action comes from these events, it's clearly wrong, and now people have mental scars. I suspect that this keeps up the action we will take and will not serve all of you who sacrifice to fill police jobs. Nobody said it would be easy, but nobody said it should be saying it doesn't matter, because it does. Everyone wants you to get better, so do it. Sincerely written.
Next one's from Teresa and Craig Nash. When children are being put on the hot pavement over mere stolen property, terrorized, treated as objects, and facts aren't checked or corroborated, it is definitely time to look into the underlying training, mentality, and goals of this tax-supported entity. We need a police department that provides support, protection, concern, community, and friendship, not one that treats citizens as enemies, second-class citizens, or adversaries. I can't help feeling that if these had been blue-eyed, blonde children, a different standard procedure would have been implemented. Please look into this situation and so many others and initiate and implement the fundamental changes that need to be made now.
The next one's from Milka Stevenson. Please explain to the citizens of Aurora why the hell the APD can't tell the difference between a motorcycle and an SUV. Please tell us why these children were approached by the APD with guns drawn. Tell us why these children were made to lay on the hot pavement and cuffed without cause, all while crying and screaming for their mother. Tell the world why the hell these officers and officers who murdered our fellow citizen Elijah McClain and the officers that lied and claimed peaceful protest in his honor was violent and required tear gas and riot gear are still walking around like nothing happened. I love our city. I don't think our city values me or any of its citizens. These were children. Get your act together.
Next one's from Toby Halliday. Can anyone anywhere say they're proud of the Aurora Police Department? They kill innocent people. R.I.P. Elijah McClain. Where's the justice? Their officers drink in their vehicles on the job, and they harass people of color for most absurd reasons. So unthorough. They pull guns on innocent black family in a van and force them to the ground because they're looking at a stolen motorcycle. Entirely unacceptable. The entire department is filthy. This needs to be addressed tonight, and reform must happen now, or prepare for the unrest to continue until you do something about it. Until then, don't even think twice about why we say F the police. You have your answer. It's signed a sick and effing tired Aurora resident.
The next one's from Susan Elberspacher. Aurora City Council. As an Aurora taxpayer, I demand change in the APD. Our police officers constantly escalate situations and create trauma to their citizens they are paid to protect. There is no reason to this event of last weekend with a mistaken stop should have resulted in children face down on the pavement and two of them handcuffed. I understand that mistakes happen, but it's not okay to have a mistake turn into this. Please require more de-escalation training, and the APD needs to come up with reparation plan for the children and their aunt who are mistakenly and unnecessarily traumatized.
Next one's from Karen Walters. Dear Aurora City Council, as an Aurora resident and pet retail professional, I agree with the statement prepared by the End Aurora BSL group wholeheartedly, and I hope the council will do the right thing for our community without delay. I wish to comment about Aurora 18-75 and some of the misconceptions we have heard from some of the members of the council on this ordinance. In 2005, the Aurora City Council established this ordinance without a vote of the people. In 2013, a provision was placed on the ballot asking people if they wanted to remove it. An incumbent law is already difficult to remove, particularly when worded to fail as it was. The people need to understand that removing this ordinance is not about people wanting to own one of the 17-plus breeds considered pit bull. It's about people who understand that this ordinance actually makes our communities more dangerous by limiting the access for those who have these breeds and may not have known they were getting these breeds as puppies to socialization, veterinarian care, training, and insurance. The reason why most notable professional organizations across the country have come out against breed-specific legislation as bad policy isn't because these organizations would like to see more pitfalls. It's because this type of ordinance perpetuates a cycle of irresponsibility. The American Bar Association, the CDC, the ASPCA, the Humane Society, the American Veterinarian Medical Association, the American Kennel Club, and a host of various other organizations are confirming that dangerous dog legislation and ordinance needs to be relevant to all breeds. The reason this distinction is important is due to the prevalence of new breeds being established and currently banned breeds being left with more docile bloodlines. I urge members, particularly Ms. Berzins, Mr. Gruber, and Mr. Gardner, to consider the logical necessity of establishing responsible dangerous dog legislation that applies to all dogs, and the wisdom of proposals in Castle Rock and Denver. We have the data right now, and after a year of repealing their breed legislation, are not seeing any upticks in incidents. The right way to move this ordinance isn't by posting an existing law to ballot. It's by removing 1875 the same way it was implemented, through an act of council, after which we can ask the public if they would like to implement a more relevant and modernized breed restriction law to replace it.
The next one's from Julie Conray. This cannot happen again. Officers have better things to do. Another incident showing why there's a lack of trust and faith in the Aurora Police Department. What will be done to prevent this from happening again?
Next one's from Byron Taylor. From an Aurora Ward 5 resident, I wish to comment about Aurora 18-75 and some misconceptions we have heard from some members of the council on this ordinance. In 2005, the Aurora City Council established this ordinance without a vote of the people. In 2013, a provision was pasted on the ballot asking people if they wanted to remove it. An incumbent law was already difficult to remove, particularly when worded to fail as it was. The people need to understand that removing this ordinance is not about people wanting to own one of the 17 plus breeds considered pit bull. It's about people who understand that this ordinance actually makes our communities more dangerous by limiting the access for those who have these breeds and may not have known they were getting these breeds as puppies to socialization, veterinarian care, training, and insurance. The reason why most notable professional organizations across the country have come out against breed-specific legislation as bad policy isn't because these organizations like to see more pit bulls. It's because this type of ordinance perpetuates a cycle of irresponsibility. The American Bar Association, the CDC, the ASPCA, the Humane Society, the American Veterinarian Medical Association, the American Kennel Club, and a host of various other organizations are confirming that dangerous dog legislation and ordinance needs to be relevant to all breeds. The reason this distinction is important is due to the prevalence of new breeds being established and currently banned breeds being left with more docile bloodlines. I urge members, particularly Ms. Burson, Mr. Gruber, and Mr. Gardner, to consider the logical necessity of establishing responsible dangerous dog legislation that applies to all dogs, and the wisdom of proposals in Castle Rock and Denver. We have the data now, and after a year of repealing the breed registration, are not seeing any upticks in incidents. The right way to move this ordinance isn't by posting an incumbent law to ballot. It's by removing 1875 the same way it was implemented through an act of council, after which we can ask the public if they would like to implement a more relevant and modernized breed restriction law to replace it. I realize that's redundant. It's from a different person.
The next one's from John O. Scott. Dear City Council, I'm sad to say that after 30 years of living in Aurora, I no longer feel safe. I literally laughed out loud recently when my neighbor told me they were choosing to be transferred to the DC area because they felt it was safer. Yes, he actually said DC was safer than Aurora. Then he also informed me that the decision was based on someone throwing a rock through their sliding glass door at 2 a.m. and getting within a few steps of their 2-week-old daughter's bedroom before they literally had to kick them down the stairs. I have 2 questions that I want you to consider, especially the members of the Socialism and Liberation Party who were on council. Number 1, do you think that 13.2% rise in major crime has anything to do with a constant attack on the credibility of the police department? It seems like the police have an unreasonable amount of scrutiny. Every time they answer calls, they have a smartphone video on them with every move, waiting to pounce on any mistake that they might make. I believe that the attack on their credibility, mixed with the fear that has been overlaid on those who are young and vulnerable for crime, creates a dangerous environment that actually invites crime. It's called the Ferguson effect. My friend who lives in Ferguson said it hasn't worked out very well there. When you tie the hands of police and attack their credibility, it actually emboldens and encourages criminals in this environment. The crime would only continue to go up and the chaos will only continue to get worse. Is this what you want? I would say to the socialist members, maybe this is what you want. The second question that I would ask is this. Number 2, what am I to do when my family of 6 gets surrounded by a group of protesters who are harassing and threatening us? We've seen vehicles violently attacked in protests like this around the country. And based on the events of the last protest, there's no reason that it will not happen here. I'm actually scared to drive to my nearest highway on-ramp because it has been shut down by a mob twice in the last 2 months. On a side note, this is not peaceful and a lawful assembly meeting on the public highway. It's jaywalking, blocking the public right-of-way, and disturbing the peace. So what would you suggest families with young children do in this situation like this? If you answer, just sit and take it, shame on you. That is not the answer of someone who truly cares about the people of Aurora. It's someone who cares about creating chaos and disorder. Sincerely.
Next one's from David Smith. I'm writing to document my ongoing dismay with the lack of progress in the Elijah McClain case, and in particular, APD's handling of the Jeep, which intentionally and maliciously drove through the protesters on I-225 on Saturday, July 25th. As the Jeep reached the main group of protesters, it was moving at a very high speed, presumably 70 miles an hour, and the driver was making little, if any, effort to avoid the people protesting the Elijah McClain case. It's a poignant statement being made by APD when the driver of that Jeep can be met collegially by the police at the off-ramp, and to this point, no charges pressed after having, at least recklessly, and most likely given the high rate of speed he was traveling by the time he reached the protester column, maliciously sped through a crowd of thousands. As we've been saying for the last year now, one side's narrative is consistently upheld on this issue, and the other side is consistently treated with disdain.
The next one's from Steve Johnson. Scumbag protesters on I-225. Why were protesters on I-225 in the first place? Regular people use this highway to go to work and to the airport. If a mob were surrounding my car on the highway, I would keep driving also.
Next one's from Summer Mrotech. Mayor Mike Kaufman, every time you refer to those of us who are not on your side of the Elijah McClain issue as the opposition, you further damage your standing in this community. I would offer you, remember, we are all fellow citizens. You are actually elected to represent the best interest of all of us. You somehow seem to lapse back into a very adversarial tone every time an issue with this ongoing black mark on the APD and the city comes up. I would also remind you this is a very diverse community, and your demeanor on this matter will make it very easy. Will make it very easy to vote you out when the time comes.
The next one is from Elise Schreiber. Aurora government as a whole, please consider the choices you're making and how they affect your community. I'm dismayed to see that the young man who tried to shoot out the tires of the Jeep on Saturday, presumably to stop the violent acts, will be charged with attempted murder. What about the terrorists who drove the Jeep aiming for people? What about the officers who killed a helpless young Elijah? Were these not attempts at murder? Were these not successes in murder? Come on, you're condoning the very act you claim to protect the people of Aurora from. You consider it your duty to uphold the safety and peace of your community, but your championing behavior will tear it down. Why can't you guys get it right? It's not hard. It's so clear on the outside that you're missing the point. Your children play here. Your families expect to be safe here. You want to encourage outsiders to visit here and boost our economy, yet you're allowing terrorists like these people to tarnish the name of your city. Please arrest the men in the Jeep Saturday. They are a threat to your jobs and your safety. Charge the police officers who mercilessly killed Elijah McClain with manslaughter. How disgraceful, it's disgraceful. How long has it taken for you to become your issue?
Next one's from Natalie Achi. Shame on you. Protect and serve. That is what a decent policeman does. Your force is out of control with men who think they are better than the people they are paid to serve. The country cannot survive with this going on. There are no good cops if bad cops are permitted to remain on your force.
The next one's from Riley Herfin. I'm writing on behalf of Elijah McClain. Elijah was brutally murdered in August 2019, and the officers and EMTs involved have not been arrested or prosecuted. They deliberately made sure that their body cameras did not record Elijah's murder, which indicates that they knew they were doing something wrong. Elijah posed no threat to them, yet they continued to torture him after he complied and was explaining that he could not breathe well. There is not justification for Elijah's death, and the officers and medical professionals involved cannot continue to escape punishment. They have vividly demonstrated how dangerous they are to society, and they must face repercussions. I'm asking you to use your power to get justice for Elijah. No one deserves to die like that. You need to be on the right side of history. It has been almost a year since Elijah died, and the fact that no justice has been achieved in this time is despicable enough. Do not let this inaction continue. Use your power to get justice for Elijah, but to help change the system that condones so much discrimination and racism. Do your part.
This next one is from Corey Peth. I was very upset by the recent riots at the Aurora City Center and the blocking of 225. These are not peaceful protesters, and their violent behavior is disgraceful. It is my understanding our police department was hesitant to respond because of lawsuits that were brought against them recently. This has to stop, and our police department needs need support from our city leadership. Our police officers can't protect citizens and property if they are looking over their shoulders, worried about lawsuits and condemnation from the mayor and or council members. That said, accountability is very important. If an officer doesn't perform with high levels of integrity, then by all means, she should be held to account. By giving them responsibility without authority is simply disastrous, as we saw last weekend and earlier this month when a precinct was surrounded and officers were trapped inside. To those on the council who do not support and empower our officers, or who do support and empower our officers, thank you. Corey Path, Aurora resident.
The next one's from Paul Lacour. I'm a resident of Aurora and I demand to know what's happening with the driver and passenger of the Jeep who attempted to speed up and drive into protesters on Saturday night. There are multiple videos and footage showing the license plates and identity of these men. Their decision to accelerate and drive into protesters put many people in danger of losing their lives. The public can clearly see how the Aurora officers who were on the scene treated these two white men with respect and care while ushering them safely to their vehicle, as I have been told, making sure they reached their destination. They committed a crime. They weaponized their vehicle and intentionally drove into a group of people. We all know this would not have been the case if the race of these were too black or brown. The APD response on camera is despicable and I demand answers. The APD constantly chooses to oppress and allow harm and death, demanding response.
Next one's from Lisa Tran, and this came in after our last meeting, so I think it's germane to that one. After listening to tonight's meeting about the protesting situation on Saturday, I do not condone to what Councilmember Gruber was implicating. To state the driver of the Jeep was only going through the crowd for safety is thinking in terms of a murdering mentality. With that being said, should the DMV now be required to place a question down stating a person's mental ability to get a driver's license? Example, what would you do if you saw a crowd of people and had to wait in your car? Would you A, drive through the crowd of people, B, drive around the crowd of people? If you're telling me you would pick option A, that's allowing public murder to be happening. This is no longer about being political. This is about common sense. Thanks.
The next one is from Ella T. Hello, my name is Ella Trex, and I'm a white resident of Arapahoe County. I wanted to share my thoughts on what happened this weekend at the Municipal Center and on the highway. I was one of the people on the highway as the Jeep barreled through the crowd. The response of the mayor and APD was absolutely reprehensible. APD allowed the driver of the Jeep to calmly go about their business, and I heard reports that the officers even took the driver to the airport. There was no arrest for this attempted vehicular homicide, despite many videos and witnesses showing the driver's complete disregard and contempt for the people protesting peacefully on the highway. This is especially heinous in light of the way APD is investigating the shooter, as if his actions were worse than the driver. I cannot understand first how the driver got onto the highway when APD supposedly blocked the entrances, and why the driver was released after discussion with APD and no arrest charges against him. This shows APD's blatant disregard for the safety of the protesters and their protection of white supremacy who attempt to harm them. Additionally, Mike Kaufman's comments about protesters being domestic terrorists is horrifying. A mayor who calls his constituents terrorists should not be a mayor. Why are the people who damage property, which can be repaired, terrorists, but the man who drove through the full group of people whose lives cannot be brought back if they are killed is just a regular citizen who's let go without repercussion? Why are you more upset about the broken window than a young man's life being taken from him by APD? If you truly want to stop the protests, charge the men who killed Elijah McClain, defund the police, and abolish them entirely. Thank you. Next one's from Rachel Johnson. Please begin the process of defending the Aurora Police. People of color, especially Black, should not be murdered with impunity by the police. Justice for Elijah McClain.
The next one's from, Missy Berglund. On Saturday, members of our community gathered to maintain awareness of the lack of justice for the death of Elijah McClain. The protest included peaceful actions reminiscent of the action of leaders of the past civil rights era, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Representative John Lewis. The action included the blockage of public roads. When John Lewis first crossed the Pettus Bridge in 1965, he was met with billy clubs and tear gas. This weekend, protesters who believe Black Lives Matter were threatened with similar violence when a vehicle driven by two white men attempted to kill protesters. I was there. I watched in horror as the teal Jeep was accelerating under the Alameda Bridge. I watched in horror and screamed as loud as I could at the hundreds of people in the road to move. I simply remember screaming car because I was frozen and had no other choice. I watched hoping for intervention when a white truck moved so slightly, just enough to stop the Jeep momentarily by blocking its path. For a moment, I took a breath. Then I screamed again as the Jeep barely seemed disrupted from its apparent mission. The Jeep then began accelerating again, this time directly towards the path of people who were now all running in terror. I closed my eyes to shield myself from the imminent carnage I was certain would follow. In the seconds that followed, I heard people screaming about another car, and I rushed to the cars that were in the street, where I saw a mother attempting to exit her car with her child. She turned her car sideways to protect further carnage and handed me her daughter. I held that sweet baby for what felt like an eternity. I didn't know what would come next and how I would reunite her with her mother. When they did reunite, I still hadn't looked down the highway. I couldn't. The protest organizers sprung into action to ensure safety for everyone. They directed us, and we continued with reassurance that people needing medical attention were receiving it. When I returned home to my own children, the trauma of the evening sunk in. I watched the 9 News live feed to see what had happened to the drivers of the Jeep. They were able to leave the scene with no recourse, but rather with the assistance of APD. These men were clearly intent on driving through the protesters, something I've seen made into a joke by many people. This wasn't a joke to these men who were seen on video accelerating down a crowd. They were never surrounded by an angry crowd. They wanted to kill the crowd. This behavior is not only suspicious, it was criminal, and yet these men were allowed to leave. We were on the street protesting, urging the same tactics as Martin Luther King Jr. and so many before us to demand justice for Elijah. Elijah, who was suspected of no crime. Elijah, who was walking home. Elijah, who was peaceful and loving while fighting for his life. There is a reckoning due to in the Aurora Police Department when attempted murderers, their actions caught off film by news helicopters, are treated as friends, and a young Black man walked home and is treated like a criminal, convicted on sight, and sentenced to death within seconds. I am curious how the men in the Jeep received benefit of the doubt. How did officers know they had killed anyone? Why didn't officers listen to the voice of the motorcyclists who had them, and what had occurred? And that is 3 minutes, so I will have to stop there.
The next one's from Alicia Kumantakis. Dear Mayor Kaufman and City Council members, I'm deeply disturbed by the Aurora Police Department's actions yet again. The trauma caused to the 4 children that were falsely accused of stealing a car, cuffed, forced to lay face down on the pavement, and had guns drawn on them by the protectors of our community is unacceptable. It's quite clear that the vehicle these 4 children were in was not a stolen motorcycle with Montana plates. This is another incident of racial profiling and police brutality. Thank goodness no one was killed. I highly doubt the Aurora Police would have handled this situation the same had the vehicle been in the Southlands Mall parking lot with 4 white children. Did you watch the video of this incident and hear the little 6-year-old girl panicking and calling out for her mother? I have 2 7-year-old daughters, and as a mom in the Aurora community, this must not be the way our officers conduct themselves with young children ever again. Do these officers not have any human decency or common sense? Obviously, the 6-year-old wouldn't have had anything to do with the car theft. And in fact, the teenagers in this car didn't either. Why was the young child laid out on the parking lot pavement like a violent criminal? Shame on the Aurora PD yet again. The Aurora Police Department just used our tax dollars to build a fence around their police compound on the Aurora Parkway to protect themselves and their property. What does the public do to protect themselves from the Aurora Police? We need a huge change in this city, and I appreciate you doing your part to make sure that these racist cops don't keep harming our innocent Black and brown brothers and sisters in our community. Thank you for your time.
Next one's from Abon John. It's a series of news articles that were sent, and I'll do my best to read as much of it as I can in 3 minutes. So the first one is mysterious piles of bricks discovered at riots protests across the U.S., and there's a YouTube link. Dallas plane with My Neck Hurts banner mocking Floyd murderer, and there's a link to that article. Who's behind the violence at George Floyd protest in U.S.? This is an article by Jamie Detmer from June 4th, 2020. The daytime protests this week across the United States have been largely peaceful, consisting of people drawn from all racial backgrounds and all walks of life, young and old. They have included mothers fearful that what befell George Floyd, an African-American man who died in police custody after a white police officer knelt on his neck for more than 8 minutes, could all too easily happen to their sons. But many of the nights since Floyd's death have been different, full of rampant pillaging, arson, and vandalism and brawling with police. There have been isolated incidents of shots being fired at police. In their turn, protesters blame police for heavy-handed tactics and say they are merely defending themselves. Who's behind the violence? President Donald Trump and some of his top officials accused radical left agitators for the mayhem. U.S. Attorney General William Barr points fingers at the far-left extremist groups, including Antifa, a network of confrontational, autonomous far-left groups. Some Democratic governors have in turn blamed far-right groups, highlighting an announcement this week by social media giant Twitter that it had suspended an account linked to white national group identity Aurora for inciting violence. The account was set up with a fake Antifa profile and was linked to other false flag accounts that pumped out provocative false information accusing authorities and the internet providers of censoring protest news. Facebook also announced this week it had suspended several accounts linked to white nationalist groups that after they urged people to bring weapons to protests in the U.S. Meanwhile, members of the so-called Boogaloo movement, an amorphous collective with far-right and far-left elements, were seen at protests in some states wearing their signature Hawaiian shirts, including in Minnesota, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Some Boogaloo adherents are part of the broader movement of white supremacists called accelerationists who welcome civil disorder and want to foment violent political polarization, hoping it will end up toppling Americans' current political order. New York's Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller, believes anarchist and radical groups have been left stroking the fury in this city. Before these protests began, he told reporters, organizers of certain anarchist groups set out to raise bail money, and people who would be responsible to be raising bail money, they sent out to recruit medical teams with gear to deploy in anticipation of violent interactions with the police. He added, they prepared to commit property damage and direct people where falling should be. And that is 3 minutes, so I will stop there.
Okay, the next one is from Troy Valentine. Hello, Council Mayor. You could hold a special meeting about arresting the killers of Elijah McClain, but instead here you are talking about property. I'm a resident and would not like to see my taxes spent fixing windows. I want the destruction to remind those of you on this board about your silence for months about the murder in our community member at the hands of our police force. If for 1 second you wonder in terror about not having a police force in Aurora, you must realize that we currently have murderers on our streets. The murderers were handed back their weapons after targeting, abusing, and ultimately giving the go-ahead to assassinate the innocent young man. Your silence is your tool of oppression. Your silence is loud and clear. Your silence is the white supremacy that we will eradicate from our city. Mayor, you posted that we cannot turn into another Portland. You are blind to understand what infects a city of hatred. Your concern about peace falls on deaf ears when you have the power to influence systems of oppression. I hope none of the officers that were interviewed for the job are hired. I'd like to see Candace Bailey be the Aurora Police Chief. None of the officers are experts in what is needed in Aurora. Candace Bailey is an expert about what is needed in Aurora. Please consider other candidates before choosing one of these 4 candidates. Did you read John Lewis's farewell? He mentions Elijah McClain. Another video came out yesterday with celebrities calling for justice for the murder of Elijah McClain. The whole world is watching. You can take a stand and say none of these officers are prepared or experts in transforming our police department.
Next one's from Ashley DiRuggiero. The events that took place were horrifying. What's more horrifying was how APD treated the man that drove his Jeep through a peaceful protest. What's disgusting is that he wasn't handcuffed, arrested, and charged. Still investigating? How can that be? The footage available is endless. If APD treated Elijah McClain with the same dignity and respect, he would still be alive. Take action today. Arrest the Jeep driving monster. I also demand the following. I demand that the following individuals are fired immediately and charged for the conduct that has resulted in the death of Elijah McLean, Nathan Woodyard, Randy Rodema, Matthew Green, Sergeant Dale Leonard, Lieutenant Pete Burnett, Medical Jeremy Cooper of the Aurora File Rescue. We demand that former Officer Jason Rosenblatt, who was recently fired for finding humor in a photo mocking Elijah's death, is charged as well. We demand that DA Dave Young resign from his role, finding that the officers did not violate any criminal laws, and more recently wrongly stated on national television that Elijah experienced no injuries from the incident. We demand timely investigation in this case. It is nearly a year since Elijah's death at the hands of Aurora officials. Elijah McLean was a 23-year-old man with limitless potential. Our world has lost an incredible person, and we demand justice. Take accountability. Enough is enough. Take action today. The nation is watching, and it's seeing you protect violent racists.
The next one's from Katrina Zurelli. Hello, I'm writing to say that I think the breed ordinance should be repealed and that other dogs should be allowed in Aurora. I'm not a dog owner, but I think anyone should be allowed to move here to Aurora with their dogs, even if they are pit bulls. Having this ordinance is likely causing more dogs to end up in shelters when people need to move to Aurora. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is from Tisha Bellis. I'd like my comment read into the record, please. Justice for Elijah McLean. This is unjust, and there needs to be justice brought. Racism in our police forces throughout the U.S. needs to be held accountable for targeting innocent lives. And with that, we have a couple more comments to read, but I have 4 voice messages, so I'm going to go ahead and play those. All right, so here is the first one.
Yes, I saw the individuals to be picked from for the Aurora Police Chief on TV this morning. And I don't know how we reach racial equality when we have 1 white woman and 3 black men. That is not racial equality. And to have a police chief from Baltimore as the final 4 when they have a high crime rate doesn't say much for the selection process. I've lived in Aurora now for 40 years and have watched it go steadily downhill. It certainly cannot be considered a beautiful city or a clean city, and it just continues to get worse. And I don't know, it's discouraging to see the candidates for police chief and only 1 woman, and we're talking about having equality in this country. So thank you. I hope whoever you pick does a better job than the last 3 or 4 you picked. Thank you.
Okay, here's the next one.
Hello, Aurora City Council and Mayor Kaufman. My name is Susan McLean, and I am a community member in Aurora. I am saddened and outraged that Aurora Police have once again proven a continued practice and pattern of police brutality targeted at my black neighbors. I'm referring to the August 3rd incident where police drew guns on a family with young children in a car aged 6 to 17. APD's excuse this time is training. Let's be real, even the youngest survivor of this incident at the tender age of 6 would understand that a family together in their car on a beautiful summer day should not be met with deadly weapons in their faces. I'm outraged at seeing this beautiful family brutalized by police, and I'm so grateful that they are safe and unharmed after experiencing police violence. I cried in despair as I walked home from Elijah McLean's violin vigil. We were there to mourn an innocent killed in an incident of police brutality, and there, we were shown up close yet more police brutality. It was ugly, it was haunting, it was terrifying. I realized then that white mourners would not have been met with over 100 armed riot police at Aurora Municipal Center. No. Aurora Police reserves that type of behavior and violence for our Black friends and family. Shame, APD. Shame on all who say this status quo is good enough. Shame on the police advocates on council and Mayor Kaufman. Your short-sighted defense of the status quo hurts the police community too. I didn't start out thinking we should defund police, but with every instance of blatant APD white supremacy that's unmet by justice, I can't imagine any other way to rid our community of this pestilence. We demand better, and we will follow through to get it.
Okay. And here's the next one.
My name is Darlene Jones, done by computerized voice because of my asthma handicap. Once again, Mayor Kaufman, you lied in your campaign stating that you would act duly in the justice for Elijah McClain. There would not have been one protest if you would have demanded an independent investigation in the murder of Elijah McClain. District Attorney Dave Young should not have been the one to sign off on the murder of Elijah McClain when he himself is not freed from a scandal of the murder of his former girlfriend. All those involved in the death of Elijah McClain should have been fired. There are 2 employed officers yet to be fired. Persons, I don't see you being active in Ward 3 with your let's all get along tone and your itch for greed with your latest actions of $1,000 to use city grounds. Demilitarize/abolish white supremacist groups in our police force. We already have 8 military branches plus the National Guard. Aurora needs to see who is on their police force by doing extreme background checks before hiring them and those who are currently employed. I am quite sure the police have pictures of all hate groups. When doing physical exams for hiring, examine their tattoos as well. That is a story in itself of who they support. I used to trust but now fear the police. I once said there are good police, but where are they in Aurora? Aurora has opened up my eyes while the good police turned a blind eye. The way the police treat Black/Brown/Indigenous people in Aurora are disturbing. We have a problem and those who hold a high position need to recognize it. An independent investigation needs to happen of the driver that plowed moving at 100 miles per hour speed into the protesters on Saturday. APD let him go while Eden arrested the driver who plowed into protesters as well as other cities. My question to the APD and members of the City Council needs to question why APD opened up the traffic to let this one turquoise Jeep plow into the protesters to cause harm. We as citizens need the truth of why those 2 men were let go and if they work for APD. One needs to ask the police union president what happened to our constitutional right to freedom of speech. If any of the city council members can't handle the community requests, then you should resign effective immediately or we will encourage others to vote you out. City council has to be reminded they work for us, the citizens. You didn't vote for us to be citizens. We voted for you to do your job in making Aurora a better place for us to live and not favor one race group. One more thing. Antifa is not the cause of disruption in these protests. It is the white nationalist party who are disguising themselves to be Antifa. These disruptors want those who support Black Lives Matter to be blamed for their destruction as other cities in this nation have proven. Antifa would be all of us that are against fascism. Antifa is defined as anti-fascism. No justice, no peace, defund the police now.
Thank you. And we also received a couple of emails from Miss January Jones, so we'll get those out to the council. We have one more voicemail, but I'm going to read the one other comment we have remaining before we get there. This one's from Gabriella Jacobo, and go and read that. It says, Dear Aurora City Council, below is the email I sent to Resident Leadership Council and El Alba Cooperative supporters recognizing the amazing support that Ward 1 Councilmember Crystal Murillo has given to our work. Please consider the statement for City Council public comment. Thank you. So what it says is, Dear Resident Leadership Council and El Alba Cooperative supporters, as you know, I sent an email to all of you stating that the Community Campus Partnership, CCP, would be closing its doors on June 30th, 2020. However, many of the resident leaders participating in CCP's work insisted on the need to continue the community engagement work regardless of the unfortunate announcement. Therefore, I laid out some next steps on how the Resident Leadership Council and the El Alba Cooperative would work together to become independent and self-sustained community organizations over the next several months. Well, a lot has changed in the past 3 weeks because of a meeting between City Council member Crystal Murillo and the Anschutz Medical Campus Chancellor Don Elliman regarding the need to preserve the community engagement work of the Resident Leadership Council and El Alba Cooperative. I'm happy to say that because of Councilmember Murillo's intervention and insistence, and because of the outpouring of support from community allies, the Chancellor agreed to continue supporting the RLC and El Alba, and moving forward agreed to continue funding the community connector position and making the RLC and El Alba a crucial part of the formed Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. As a result, the Community Connector will continue to engage with Aurora's community members and allies unimpeded, and will now report directly to the Chancellor's office. This is a big win for North Aurora residents, and we must all take the time to celebrate. On behalf of the Resident Leadership Council and El Alba Cooperative, I would like to thank all of you for your support and words of encouragement. If you're able, please send a thank you email to Councilmember Crystal Murillo, as she was the force that really made this last minute change with the Chancellor possible. Thank you, and please stay in touch regarding some new exciting announcements over the next several weeks. And with that, we'll go ahead and play the last voicemail that's in the public comment.
Hi, my name is Diego Lopez Fleming, and I'm a citizen of Ward 3 here in Aurora. I have a lot to say, so hopefully I can get it all out in 3 minutes. I'd first like to say that none of the candidates for police chief have demonstrated at all that they are going to fix ongoing issues plaguing APD, because all of them are from police departments that have had their own Elijah McClain. That would be Freddie Gray and Clayton Allen. And quite frankly, if you don't know those names, I don't think you're fit to vote on the city manager's recommendation tonight. And you need to go back and do your homework on these candidates. I haven't heard any one of them reach out to our community in a way that distinguishes them head and shoulders above any of the other candidates, and City Council needs to have the highest expectations in order to protect our community, especially after what happened to Elijah McClain. The 2 current officers seeking the position should not be considered. We need a bold new face who's going to stand in solidarity with our community when officers fail to do their job. And I'm also asking that City Council do a complete change in our hiring process for police and APD. We need to limit the number of police officers who are hired that don't live in Aurora. It doesn't make any sense to have people from other cities, other communities putting handcuffs, pointing guns, and policing the streets of a community that they don't belong to. If they have no stake in the community, no community ties, no home, no family here in Aurora, then how can we expect them to treat our neighbors with dignity and respect? It's also disturbing to think that we spend close to $130 million on APD, and some of them live in other cities. Aurora tax dollars should go to Aurora citizens who will invest their salaries back into their city. I think we need a complete overhaul of the hiring service that APD uses. We need an independent community board that verifies every single candidate. Any good cop should be able to pass an interview with the community. So we need that. Thirdly, we need to redirect our resources, our dollars, because it doesn't make sense that we spend so much money on a reactionary measure. Police are not preventing crimes in our city. Crimes are going up. People are saying they feel more unsafe. There's been more shootings, and we need to redirect these funds. Police are a reactionary measure to poverty, homelessness, and lack towards these issues. We would not only solve the issues with APD, but we could end the senseless misery of not having a home, not being able to provide for your family, and not having opportunity in the supposed all-American city. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, we do have about 10 more comments that came in after the start of the meeting, so we'll reserve those for the end of the meeting, for the second public invited to be heard. And then we do have a couple more comments on the police chief item. Sorry, we didn't flag all those, but we will read those when we get to that item on the agenda. And Mayor, you are muted.
Item number 8A, adoption of the agenda.
Mayor?
Motion. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes, before we vote on the motion, I do have another motion to move item 10A up before item 8A.
Very well. Is there objection? Seeing none, then we will move item number 10A before item number 8A. Motion? Oh, wait, then okay, adoption of the agenda. It's been moved by Councilmember Johnston to adopt the agenda with the exception of moving item 10A in front of item number 8A. Is there objection? Seeing none, the agenda then is adopted, and we will move item number 10A in front of item number 8A. Will the clerk please read the title of item number 10A?
Yes, sir. Consideration to approve a resolution by the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado to amend certain council rules.
Motion?
Mayor?
I need a motion first. Councilmember Gardner.
Motion to approve item 10A.
It's been moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by Councilmember Hiltz to approve item number 10A. Discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes, could we just have an overview, or maybe, actually, I'll just give a little overview. This is staff some time, but the reason I asked for 10A to be before 8A is this was a friendly amendment that Councilmember Gardner offered Councilmember Hiltz's resolution for accommodating family issues. So I don't know if Councilmember Gardner or Councilmember Hiltz want to add more to that, but I just want to make sure we had a few words on it.
Good, and it's my understanding it's my understanding that the passage of 10A will then void 8A from consideration. Am I correct in that?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
If 10A does pass, I will move to remove 8A from the agenda.
Very well. Discussion on 10A.
Mayor?
Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, just to second what Mayor Pro Tem Johnson said. The reason that I proposed these amendments to our prior rule changes was really just to permanently codify some, I guess really some changes that have come up in light of virtual meetings. You know, we just didn't think of what the environment might look like in COVID, and this kind of takes care of that, and you know, still allows families to be with children. It still allows other members of the City Council to deal with other medical issues that come up. There's a whole list of conditions and situations that are covered, and so this really just kind of makes some accommodations related to virtual meetings permanent. And so I think it's really important that we make these changes because I think it shows that we're, as a council, willing to be flexible with people and deal with things that come up in their lives while also making sure that we're able to get the business of the city done.
Very well. Further discussion on item number 10A.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Hiltz. I mean, sorry, Councilmember Hiltz.
That's council member. I just wanted to thank my colleagues for, you know, thinking ahead on some of these issues. I think when we first drafted the original one, COVID hadn't really reared its full ugly head yet, and we did not get into, you know, meetings being virtual and indefinitely being virtual. And so I appreciate that, especially just because this is so much, I may be the impetus for this policy, given the current situation, but it certainly does not just apply to me in this moment. This is something that I think we need in the long term and is a good family-friendly policy moving forward as a city. So I just appreciate their willingness to put in the work to make this happen.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
10A is approved unanimously.
Is there objection to removing item number 8A from the agenda? Seeing none, then item number 8A will be removed from the agenda. Motion for consent calendar. Items number 9A through E.
Mayor,
Councilmember Bergen.
motion to approve 9A through E.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, second by Councilmember Gruber to approve items number 9A through 9E on the consent calendar.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
Can we pull out 9E, please?
Very well. So the motion as amended, is there a second to Councilmember Coombs'
Second.
motion? It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to amend the Bergen motion to take out item number 9E from the consent calendar. Am I correct? 9E.
Yes.
Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Yeah, this is on items 9A through D. Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Would the clerk please read the title to item number 9E?
Yes, sir. Consideration to award a competitively bid contract to P360 Services, Inc., Aurora, Colorado, in the amount of $483,802 for the Spinney Caretaker House number 2 project number 5782A.
Motion?
Mayor, move to approve item 9E.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 9E. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
can we get a presentation from staff for the benefit of the public, please?
Presentation by staff.
Marshall.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is Marshall Brown, General Manager of Aurora Water. This item is for a caretaker house at our Spinney Mountain Reservoir. We have 2 caretaker houses out there and 2 resident caretakers. Spinney Mountain Reservoir is located in Park County. It's very remote. Originally, back about 30 some years ago, there were some houses built out there for the caretakers. They were temporary type construction, or modular construction is more accurate. The houses and the foundations degraded to the point where we had unsafe living conditions. And so for the last couple of years, we've been working on ways to cost effectively, or as cost effectively as possible, replace those houses with new caretaker houses to get better living conditions. We do have to maintain staff on site there for a variety of operations, including
security and operations. So this item, we had another item we brought to council about a year ago to award construction of the caretaker houses. That contractor was only able to deliver on one of the two houses. So we're bringing this item back this year to get the second house constructed. The first house has been completed, and the contractor had some challenges. There were a lot of also local conditions that changed or created changed conditions from the bid. So we're going with a new contractor for the second house, and this is the item in front of you for consideration.
Further discussion? Questions of staff or discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 9E. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Connor.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Hills.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Modio.
Yes.
9E is approved unanimously.
Would the clerk please read the title to item number 11A, and then I will open the public hearing.
Yes, sir. Public hearing and consideration of an ordinance for introduction to the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the service plan for the King Ranch Metropolitan Districts number 1 through 5, and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the district.
Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone to the clerk, anyone speaking on behalf of the public hearing?
Mayor, we have nobody signed up.
Very well. Motion? A motion, please.
Mayor. Burzins.
Councilmember Burzins from Ward 3.
You got it. Move to approve 11A.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Burzins, second by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 11A. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, just a question for staff. So this would not fall under the, since we have not voted on the changes to the Metro District, which we will later, so this would not change the ARI definitions.
Actually, they have agreed to use the new model. This is a commercial district, and so the changes to the ARI are a little bit different. The ARI mill levy, it is not the one that was discussed at study session.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hills.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Modio.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Modio, or Marcano, I called it.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
11A is approved unanimously.
Clerk, please read the title of item number 12A, and then I will open the public hearing.
Yes, sir. Public hearing and consideration to approve a resolution by the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the 6th Amendment to the amended service plan for the Sand Creek Metropolitan District.
Is there anyone to speak at the public hearing?
Mayor, we have no one signed up for this one.
Motion?
Burzins.
It's been moved by Councilmember Burzins, seconded by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 12A. Discussion?
Mayor?
I'm sorry.
Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen.
Just question for staff. So this is so that they can build out some additional infrastructure, correct?
That's correct. It's the gateway. This metro district serves the Gateway Park development, and they are about 80% built out. This is to allow them enough funding capacity to build out the additional 20% of the remaining developable property.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on item number 12A?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Item 12A is approved unanimously.
The clerk now please read the title of item number 13A.
Consideration of an ordinance for introduction of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, adopting Section 2-234A of the City Code pertaining to prohibiting the use of chokeholds and carotid holds by law enforcement.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Marcano.
move to introduce 13A.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Lawson.
Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 13A. Discussion.
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you. I just want to thank Councilmember Lawson and staff for their work on this ordinance. And I also want to give a shout out to Interim Chief Wilson for moving quickly to put this into department directives. For the public, this doesn't run against SB 217. It actually complements it, and it makes sure that the directives put in place by the chief remain in the manual permanently until a future council decides to revisit this. So, thank you.
Further discussion.
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
And yeah, I certainly support this. This was in 217 in the legislation that was recently passed. So this is just codifying it in our own code. But I guess my question is, would our police officers still have to follow it if it wasn't done this way? Meaning if it was just state law, would they still have to abide by that?
I'd certainly be happy to defer to staff, but it is my understanding that they would. So if the Colorado General Assembly were to overturn their own ordinance that they have previously passed, that this would still be in place in Aurora as a home rule city and would be applicable to our police department. Also, it would restrict a future chief, albeit that the interim chief, Vanessa Wilson, put it in a directive. What this does is it would require that the police chief would never be able to change the policy as established by the council through another directive.
All right, thank you.
Further discussion.
And Mayor, we do have one public comment to read into the record on this item before we vote.
Very well.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read that one. It's from Katrina Zarelli. Hello, Mayor Mike Kaufman, City Council members, and helpful staff. Thank you for reading my comment regarding the Aurora Police Department and this item 13A. I support prohibiting and banning carotid holds, and chokeholds as Aurora Police continues to demonstrate they are not to be trusted. Their reckless use of force and cowardly overreactions are so terrifying that I did not call 911 the other week when I witnessed a drunken teenager shoot a gun right in front of my house at 3 a.m. I say all of this as a white woman in Aurora Hills, mother of 2 young children. This may seem crazy to many council members to not call 911 and bring police to a crime scene, but how was I to know whether APD would mistakenly arrest me for calling for help, as they did to my good friend earlier this year when she called to report in-progress domestic abuse and instead put her, the victim, in jail overnight away from her 2 young kids. Last year, APD mistakenly shot and killed Vietnam vet Richard Black in his home when he called to report an intruder. How could I know if they wouldn't show up with guns drawn aimed at me? How would I feel if they had shown up and bullied, tortured, and killed the teenager without my attempt at de-escalation as they did with Elijah McClain? I do not trust the Aurora Police. They are making our streets more dangerous because I know there are more residents out there that are no longer calling 911 when they see crimes for fear of untrained overreaction. Something needs to be changed. Yesterday, August 2nd, APD traumatized 4 children ages 6 through 17 by ordering them face down on hot pavement, handcuffed, screaming for their lives, guns drawn at their heads. I couldn't get past the first 10 seconds of the 12-minute bystander video of those poor young children crying out, thinking they were all about to be murdered like so many other innocent Black lives. I urge you all to see if you can stomach watching the injustice of that bystander video. Why did this even happen? Because police couldn't do their due diligence and realize they were looking for an out-of-state motorcycle, not a Colorado car, because they couldn't question the driver, the kid's aunt, in a calm and respectful way about the car. Sloppy police work and unacceptable. What are you doing as city leaders to make sure this never happens again? Truly, Mike Kaufman, how are you letting APD know this isn't right? This is the kind of senseless video that is going to turn Aurora upside down. You are going to see more riots and property destruction if you don't stop APD now. I don't want to pay for another police misconduct case with my taxpayer city funds. Make APD pay out settlements with their own budget. Financial burden may be the only way they learn to protect us all.
Oh, I stand corrected. The term for the Colorado General Assembly is repeal. It is not overturn. That comes from the judiciary. Is there further discussion on item number 13A? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the passage or the adoption of item number 13A?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston. Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzes.
Yes.
13A is adopted unanimously.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 13B?
Consideration of an ordinance for introduction of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending sections 122-26 and 122-30 of the City Code pertaining to special districts.
Mayor,
A motion?
actually, I have a question for our city attorney.
Without a motion, there's no further discussion. I need a motion first.
Mayor, move to approve.
It's been moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by. Then it dies for lack of a second. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up, we heard several people give testimony about the public process of getting outreach on metro districts. With COVID, we were originally going to have a few in-person meetings. We did have a public town hall that Ms. Urban hosted in April. And we obviously had discussion and study session. But the information still wasn't presented with like a public meeting. So we've have great progress. I know some good changes are made, but I'm asking, and this is not a request for a special council meeting, but would like to talk to staff about having an additional public town hall meeting on metro districts. And I should say, I did share the concern of someone who gave testimony. While it's good to have some information, we had someone present from the Metro District Association, and I have constituents who are concerned about, that voice or perspective being provided. So just wanted to see if Ms. Irving could comment, if that's a possibility to have that additional public meeting done virtually to update our public on where we are with these changes and get any additional feedback.
We certainly can. It may be several weeks because we want to make sure that enough notice is given so that people can get out and be a part of it. We're happy to do that. Before you take a vote on this, I'm happy to do that. I'm wondering if there are specific issues, because we have been in front of council several times, and we felt like that we had addressed the concerns. So I'm just a little bit uncertain as to what else might be out there that needs to be addressed.
Sure. May I respond, Mayor?
Mayor, you're muted.
Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Thank you. Yes, and the information in study was great, and I know obviously people can go back and look at study. I just still, we had constituents, for instance, Mr. Barber gave some testimony, who serves on a metro district in leadership, and sometimes there's just things that I have not anticipated as a council member that my constituents who are part of that would be. So, obviously at a minimum, that overview of the changes that were made, even that, presentation that you gave us. And if I may reach out to, E470 neighbors or some other metro districts, if there's other council members with metro districts, to see if there are specific questions or concerns, because there may be some ideas that it's just not in our scope and it's a state issue.
Sure.
And that's the way it is. I don't know. But if we could have some time this week to reach out to those folks and see if there's specific questions. I just want to make sure that I'm responsive, since I've gotten several emails and then that testimony today. So I felt more comfortable bringing that up before I did a yes vote on this.
Okay. Certainly. Thank you.
I think
be in touch with some dates.
Okay. Thank you.
I think procedurally, probably the appropriate motion, if it's still going to be under consideration, would be to table item number 13B.
Mayor.
Councilmember Lawson.
No, Bergen.
Oh, Councilmember Bergen.
We look alike, I know. I thought this failed, for lack of a second.
Oh, you're correct there. I guess procedurally.
Nobody wants to make that.
Well, if nobody wants to make that motion, we'll move on. Item number 13C. Would the clerk please read the title of item number 13C?
Consideration of an ordinance for introduction of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending sections 2-851 of the City Code pertaining to the creation and composition of the Veterans Affairs Commission.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gruber.
Move to approve.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 13C. Discussion. Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 13C. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Modio.
Yes.
Councilmember Hills.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
13C passes unanimously.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 13D?
Consideration of an ordinance for introduction of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending the service plans for the Colorado International Center Metropolitan Districts numbers 6 through 9, and amending the intergovernmental agreements for the Colorado International Center Metropolitan Districts numbers 6 through 11.
Motion?
Mayor, move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Burzins to approve item number 13D. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 13D. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
13D is adopted unanimously.
Thank you. Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 14A?
Yes, consideration of an ordinance for adoption of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, authorizing the imposition of capital impact fees on residential development in the city as approved by the Uniform Development Ordinance.
Motion?
Motion to approve 14A.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Hill, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 14A. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 14A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
No.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
14A is adopted with Councilmember Burzins voting no.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 15A?
Consideration to approve a resolution by the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, finding a petition for annexation of certain parcel of land located in a portion of the north half of Section 29, Township 4 South, Range 65 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Arapahoe, State of Colorado, to be in substantial compliance with Section 31-12-1071 CRS and giving notice of a public hearing on the proposed annexation. This is the CLO annexation.
Motion?
Burzins?
Oh,
It's been moved by Councilmember Burzins, seconded by
I'll second it.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 15A. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
can staff just speak briefly about what this is?
Staff?
Certainly, thank you. The CeeLo property is approximately 20-acre parcel of land south of Jewel Avenue and east of Harvest Road. The property owner has petitioned the city for annexation, and staff has found that the petition substantially complies with the requirements in state statute. Approval of this resolution stating that the petition is in compliance and establishing the date for a public hearing on the proposed annexation is a required step of the annexation process as outlined in statute.
Further discussion or questions of staff? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 15A. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Sir, Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
15A is approved unanimously.
Will clerk now please read the title of item number 15B?
Public hearing and consideration of an ordinance for introduction of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, zoning 7.97 acres of land, more or less, generally located at the southwest corner of Piccadilly Road and Stephen D. Hogan Parkway within the County of Arapahoe, State of Colorado, to the Northeast Corridor District, and amending the zoning map accordingly. This is for Colorado Christian Fellowship initial zoning.
A motion?
Motion to approve 15B.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Berzins to approve item number 15B. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Just for staff, just to answer if this is compatible with the surrounding area.
Staff.
This is Brandon Camerata, the current planning manager. And the answer to that is yes, it is compatible with the surrounding area, supported by the comprehensive plan, which recommends support of this particular zone district in this area. Excuse me. And was recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission back in March.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk now please would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 15B?
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Morillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
15B is approved unanimously.
Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 15C?
Consideration of an ordinance for adoption of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, annexing a parcel of land located in the northeast quarter of Section 11, Township 4 South, Range 66, west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Arapahoe County, Colorado. This is Colorado Christian Fellowship annexation.
Motion. Councilmember Bergen.
Motion to approve 15C.
Moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 15C. Discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
I just want for the public's benefit, we're having a series of some annexations, and to let the public know that I still share my concerns with annexations when we're far northeast and nothing's around and we have water issues and so forth. But these areas that we are annexing are literally all surrounded by the city of Aurora, and it'll help with future economic development. So those kind of explain some of my yes votes for supporting these particular annexations. Thanks.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 15C. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Morillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber. Yes. Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
15C is adopted unanimously.
Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 15D?
Consideration of an annexation agreement between the City of Aurora and Colorado Christian Fellowship for a certain parcel of land located in the northeast quarter of Section 11, Township 4 South, Range 66, west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Arapahoe County, Colorado.
Motion.
Mayor, move to approve.
Councilmember Gruber.
Oh.
Councilmember Bergen.
Motion to approve 15D.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen and seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 15D. Discussion?
Yes, do not look like Councilmember Gruber.
Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 15D. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
And Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
15D is adopted unanimously.
Would the clerk, let's see, would the clerk now please read the title of item number 16A?
I think we need 15.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 15E?
Yes, sir. Consideration of an ordinance for adoption of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, finding and determining that certain real property located in an unincorporated area of Arapahoe County is an enclave under applicable law, making certain other findings in accordance with the Municipal Annexation Act of 1965, and annexing certain parcels of land in the east half of Section 8, Township 4 South, Range 65, west of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Arapahoe, State of Colorado. This is for Excelladonia.
Motion. Councilmember Bergen.
Motion to approve 15E.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 15E. Discussion?
Yes,
Mayor. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh.
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you. Just wanted to state that the reason that this particular parcel is being annexed is because of roadway work and making sure that we have coordination with a single municipality. And often we get into situations with utility work where we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions. So I just want to ask staff, is this really done to better coordinate?
Yes, exactly right. That is exactly right. This is will be right of way, and having it within the city of Aurora makes it much easier than having to deal with another governmental entity for that work.
Very well. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 15E. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Marcano.
Yes.
15E is adopted unanimously.
Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 16A under reconsiderations and call-ups?
Sir, reconsideration of resolution R 2020-22 concerning the continuation of the city manager's disaster declaration.
Motion.
Mayor.
Motion. Councilmember Bergen.
Motion to approve 16A.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Murillo to approve item number 16A. I'm going to defer to staff at this time to the city manager, Jim Twombly.
Thank you, Mayor. We would like for this resolution to continue to be effective in order to allow us to use our code enforcement officers and tax and licensing agents in order to enforce masking requirements if we need to do that.
Very well. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 16A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Hills.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
16A is adopted unanimously.
Are there other reconsiderations and call-ups? Seeing none, the question.
Sorry.
Okay.
My volume.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes, I would like to call up the Planning and Zoning Commission approval of the GMT application.
Very well. Motion?
So I move to call it up.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Hiltz to call up. Is it the GM? How does that refer to? GMT?
Yes.
Agreement. Very well. Discussion.
Can we, Mayor?
Councilmember Murillo.
Can we get a staff presentation?
Absolutely. Staff.
A call-up?
On a call-up,
Or the process for the call-up, is that okay, Councilmember Murillo? Because tonight is just the call-up.
Yeah, I want to know more about why you're calling up. I guess that would be for you, actually.
Oh, okay. Sure. And for the public, and thank you for asking that so it's more clear to the public. We did have GMT and oil and gas applicant get an approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission with a location for drilling near the E470 corridor. None of the landowners in that area participated in that public, the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and there were some other issues of concern. Obviously, that's an important area in our city. So I wanted to have the opportunity of calling it up, having a public hearing, having more information presented to council, and that opportunity for landowners to weigh in. So just asking I guess I would have to ask staff on the timing for the requirements for that call. I know today was the deadline to call it up. So if I could get, I don't know if that's from the planning department or Deputy City Manager Jason Batchelor on the timing of then when that would be set if I do have the votes tonight. So anyone who.
Hi, this is Dan Bratzman. So it'll be called up at the next meeting after we can get publication. I don't think we can get that done in August. I think we're looking at a meeting in September to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Question for the clerk. How is this motion phrased?
Mayor, the motion is to call up the P&Z approval of the GMT application.
Very well. That is the motion. And it has previously been moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I'm just going to make a little plug encouraging my colleagues. Again, a vote of yes this evening is not weighing in on if you think the application should be approved or not. It's just giving that opportunity to have another public setting, to have the landowners in that area give some feedback, and considering the importance of that area with ARTA and different development and economic development. I would really appreciate that we have that opportunity to get more of that information. Thanks.
Further discussion? I've seen none. Will the clerk please call the roll on the Johnston motion?
Sir. Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Modillo.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Will clerk now please read the title of 17A under general business?
Yes, approval of the appointment of blank as chief of police.
Does this require a motion at this point to the clerk?
Mayor, I'll let some of the other people who are part of this item talk.
I tell you what, right now, let me, until we actually have a recommendation, and then we'll have a motion, but right now, let me refer to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to have the approval of the mayor and council for the appointment of Vanessa Wilson as the next police chief for the city of Aurora. The city charter requires that a majority of the council approve the selection by the city manager of the police chief position. I want to appoint Vanessa Wilson to this position for several reasons. One is that she has performed so well while being interim chief. She, as she has admitted herself, that it's been a difficult time, and there have been some people that have second guessed some of the decisions she's made, and she has reflected on those and talked about improvements that she can make. She's also taken charge of the department from the standpoint that she has made some difficult personnel decisions during this time. She also has made some changes that relate to both the Nate Meyer incident and the Elijah McLean incident, that whereby those situations should be handled better in the future by directives that she's put into place. And as mayor and council have done this evening by approving the chokehold and carotid hold ordinance, it's basically, I think, endorsing a position she took a couple of months ago. I'll remind the council that we had a very robust and community-oriented a process both on the front end, where the public and mayor and council and many others were involved in providing input on the characteristics, expertise, and background that we felt we needed in a new chief. And we also went through a very community-oriented process when we brought the 4 finalists to Aurora back at the end of June for the interview process. The interview process involved executive level employees within the city, stakeholders in the community, mayor and council. We had a 2-hour public community process for question and answers. We had stakeholders question and answer session that involved education community, business community, and others. We had the AKCRT, community of faith, and other social service and stakeholders. Then we also had the police community task force go through an interview process with the candidates. The feedback that I received was that all 4 candidates had many positive aspects. There was a lot of positive feedback on all of them. There were some things that people saw issues with also, but I would say because of the way Vanessa handled herself in the interview, through the interview process, the way she's handled herself as interim chief, and then her history with the department, I would ask that the council approve her appointment as chief of police.
Very well. I will recognize myself first and move to place in nomination the name of Vanessa Wilson as the next chief of police for the city of Aurora. I believe Vanessa Wilson is the right choice to lead the Aurora Police Department. In her time as the interim chief of police, she's demonstrated leadership through the tough decisions she has made and strong actions that she's already taken. Interim Chief Wilson has a long history of community outreach and is committed to listening to the many voices of our residents. She understands it will take work and actions to rebuild the trust between our officers and the community. I have every confidence this will be her top priority, and the changes she has already implemented are just the beginning. May I have a second?
Mayor, second.
It's been moved by myself, Mayor Mike Hoffman, seconded by Councilmember Gruber. Discussion.
And Mayor, this is Steve. I do have 2 public comments that we still need to read on this item.
Very well.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. The first one is from Brenda Villegas. According to media reports, the Aurora City Council plans to vote on whether or not to appoint a final candidate to the position of Chief of Police at tonight's meeting. As a citizen of Aurora with friends and family in the law enforcement community, I would like to offer my thoughts on the subject. Like other police departments during this time, the men and women of the Aurora Police Department do their job every day despite constant attacks in the media, insults, threats, and hurtful commentary by the public, and a feeling that they are alone without support from those in command. And no matter how physically and mentally exhausting the constant barrage of hatred may be, they always return to work and do it all over again. All they ask is to have the support of the city council and a competent chief, 2 things they don't feel they have at this point. In a time when communities around the United States are calling for change in policing, it would not be wise for the mayor, city manager, and council to elevate interim Chief Wilson to the position of chief of police. In her term as interim chief, the city has suffered 2 riots, one of which resulted in the taking of more than a dozen officers as hostages in their own station, and the other costing the city tens of thousands of dollars in damage. Both of these incidents could have been prevented or at least minimized by a decisive leader, but they were not. Instead, the focus of the effort seemed to be directed at protecting those who chose to riot, to destroy public property, to hurt officers, and to block the roadways our tax dollars paid to build. While I was particularly impressed with 2 candidates, Commander Marcus Dudley and Assistant Chief of Dallas Police Avery Moore, I can only hope that you have chosen one of them for this position. Both have shown an ability to make critical decisions and to effectively lead the men and women of the Aurora Police. They have each learned through their lifetimes the challenges facing minority communities. Sadly, the interim chief has not. In closing, I ask you to find a leader of the Aurora Police Department, someone who understands reform is more important than mass firing of officers, someone who understands the challenges of our richly diverse community, and someone the men and women of APD will be proud to follow. If the candidate you vote on tonight is not such a person, then the community of Aurora urges you to shelve this appointment and continue your search so you can give us, the community and the police department, the kind of leadership and support they deserve. Next one's from Khalid Mahareb. My name is Khalid Mahareb, a citizen of Ward 4, and I'm writing to you today because I feel like my voice, as well as many other voices in communities, have to be drowned out. Aurora could have been a pioneer for what American criminal justice could have looked like, but instead, it seems that we have decided not to follow suit with cities like Minneapolis, but rather continue perpetuating a system that harms many of our citizens today. Progress has always seemed to be fed by the people incrementally, but when the current circumstances, rapid change was needed, and the response by the city council, the mayor, and the APD is not swift enough for the people of the city, where just yesterday children were being held at gunpoint by APD. Instead of focusing on banning the use of carotid holds and choosing a new police chief, why were we not focusing on a plan to live in a world without the Aurora Police Department as we know it? If cities like Minneapolis were able to vote on disbanding their police department because they saw it as racist, why is our council so hesitant to make that decision when the majority of people in our city believe our department to be even more racist? The very institution that is APD is racist and cannot be fixed or reformed, and the choices for chief show just this. First, no current member of the police department should have ever been considered for the job for obvious reasons that I will state. The interim police chief has failed miserably at the post, from using a lung irritant on innocent protesters during a pandemic, causing them to take their masks off, to not firing cops who murdered Elijah McClain, to creating an environment where cops felt comfortable making fun of the death of an innocent young life. Which takes me to the next candidate, Marcus Dudley Jr., the head of internal affairs at APD. Him being up for the candidacy is laughable. He could have delivered justice for Elijah over a year ago, but not do so. Causing a federal investigation to take place is embarrassing for us as a city, and he should be automatically disqualified. Now, for the other two outside candidates, Alexander Jones was a colonel in Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was murdered by the officers in that city. So why are we bringing in a candidate whose resume includes police brutality occurring in his city when our department struggles with that very issue? On the stain on Baltimore police legacy should automatically disqualify him as well. Lastly, Avery Moore, who worked for the Dallas Police Department, a department where a young man named Clinton Allen was murdered by police in 2013, should not be considered for the job for the same reason as the rest of the candidates. They all come from departments where innocent Black men have been murdered. So I'm asking the mayor, the city manager, and the council, why should the citizens be content with a ban on carotid holds and this selection of chiefs? The groups of candidates is a big slap in the face for those of us who want justice for Elijah McClain and want our loved ones to feel safe when being approached by APD. Aurora could have been a pioneer, but it seems like we've taken one step forward and 5 back. There's a couple others that my staff has just pointed out. This one's from Joey Hooper. I am a 19.5-year resident of Aurora. I support Vanessa Wilson for chief of police. I think she has been doing the best job she could under impossible circumstances. She's doing the job two previous people have separated, stepped down from, possibly to avoid all of the negative publicity and scrutiny she has inherited. Given the opportunity and support from the council and city managers, I believe she is the chief of police of the city of Aurora needs. Until the city council and city manager stands behind Chief Wilson or any chief and takes a stand against those who are attacking our city, those terrorists and criminals will continue to do so. It needs to be publicly stated and reinforced that Aurora is not going to tolerate this anymore. And then the last one is from Holly Cheng. I have spoken out at precious meetings and I can't stay quiet anymore, so I must keep speaking out until something changes. Some of you would praise John Lewis and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. while still standing back while Mr. Sears accuses a peaceful community organizer of terrorism. Which side of history do you want to be on? You need to condemn these words and actions by Sears. I have been at the marches, and Candace Bailey does not incite violence. She is asking for accountability. She is saying enough on the wholesale incarceration and murder of Black citizens, but make no mistake, she does not encourage destruction of property. Further, if you are still concerned with that destruction over possible loss of life to your constituents, I argue you shouldn't be in your position in the first place. As a Colorado resident, I'm asking you to distance yourself from Mr. Sears. That's it, Mayor.
Very well. I renew my motion to place in nomination the name of Interim Chief Vanessa Wilson to be the next Chief of Police for the Aurora Police Department. Further discussion.
Mayor, can I speak?
Councilmember Lawson.
I want to, I obviously know that Chief Wilson is going to possibly get this position. I will not be voting for Chief Wilson. I'm not saying she's not capable. She is capable to do the job. I have, to be full disclosure, my person that I chose was Commander Dudley. And the reason why, nobody is perfect in their decision making. No one. Chief Wilson, Commander Dudley, I know that they have done, their decision making hasn't been good on a lot of things that we're doing, and that's why we need the change that we do. But even before, when I was running for office, I mean, even in 2013, the face that I saw in the community all the time was Commander Dudley. I mean, I saw him at different events, different things in the community, and he's, to me, has shown a lot, although he has shown he's been in different departments. He's been an advocate for the community. Maybe not like what some people think, but I think he's been in positions where he has been in different types of positions throughout. He's done, the community. He did the thing with the kids. I liked he was intelligence. He's done patrol, crimes against children. He has a lot of qualifications, and I'm not down saying that Chief Wilson doesn't, but at this time in this place, I just think that we need some of the things that he's brought forth, even in his interview, could really make a difference in Aurora. I do want to just be transparent about this process. I struggled with this process because even before we even had the community process, we had City Manager Twombly, and I'm speaking for myself, contact me and wanted just the chief to automatically, Chief Wilson, to be put into this position. And I said no, because we needed to have a community process. And to me, it was already kind of slated who was going to be the chief anyway. I mean, this to me is kind of a formality like it is in other corporations and everything when people decide who they're going to pick. I know that he said that he talked to different community members, but I really think this council, and maybe if it's not this council, maybe a future council, we need to have the charter reviewed where the city manager does not have the authority to appoint a police chief. I would have rather, and a lot of people said, well, Angela, this could be political. Well, this situation that we did with amongst council, it was political. The only difference with the political, if it would have went to the voters, is that at least I would have heard more from the community and the people, and I would have been more satisfied with that answer. So I want to just say this on the record, I support Chief Wilson because as a council and as a police department, we have to come together and bridge this community. She just was not my choice. So I know that she'll get the nomination. And again, my support is with her because we need to support the police department, bridge this community together and deal with these issues that we're dealing with. So I just wanted to say my state of why I will be a no on this appointment. Thank you, Mayor.
Very well. Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, I just wanted to say that it's been a long process, obviously, in this selection process. And we did have the 4 finalists. They were all very good, very professional. And I respect all of them for applying for the position. It's a really difficult time for law enforcement. And I'm actually surprised that anybody would even want to be the chief of police during these times. So my hat's off to the 4 that did put their name in. And I do support Vanessa Wilson as our chief. She has certainly had to deal with really challenging times and difficult decision making. Probably she has also had learned some lessons from that decision making. We're not all perfect, and probably some decisions could have been done a little bit differently, but I think she has shown that she truly cares about the city of Aurora and the residents that reside here. And I think she's also shown that she is willing to make changes to ensure that our police officers, are accountable, and that we have exceptional police officers in the city of Aurora. She did inherit a lot of incidents, unfortunately, from last year, and has had to deal with those. So I just want to say that I do have confidence in her ability to lead our police, and I hope that we will come together as a community behind her and help her to do the best job that she can do. So thank you.
Further discussion.
Berzins.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. I do like Chief Wilson. She is a humble person. When she makes a mistake, she admits it. She'll put out a press release. We've heard that today. Things were done incorrectly, and she put it out there, and she has apologized for it. There's a letter out there apologizing for what happened, and I think it takes a big person to admit to wrong and tell the world about it. She tells council when she makes a mistake or the police makes a mistake, And to me, that takes a big person. She has a good background, and honestly, I've seen her out in the community too. I know she talks to people, she goes places. She's had a trial by fire ever since she became interim. The first thing that happened was the last incident at the Aurora Mall. She was right there, and she took charge, and I think she did a good job. No one's perfect. I know there were 4 candidates, and we had a big choice. I've talked to a lot of people in the community, the faith-based community, and businesses, people that interviewed her, and they're fine with her. And I think I agree. We need to come together behind the police chief, behind the city, and wish her the best and congratulations. I think she has a tough job ahead, but she's willing to take it on, and I'm happy that she's the choice to take it on.
Thank you. I just want to clarify one point here, that one of the 4 finalists was referred to by some of our residents as being from Baltimore, the law enforcement officer from Baltimore. That's not accurate. He's from Baltimore County, which does not encompass the city of Baltimore, just to clarify. Further discussion? Seeing none, then.
Mayor, sorry.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do want to thank staff and Jim for all the work that went into this process, especially during a really tense and challenging time in our city and our nation's history. I'm really heartened that city management has expressed a commitment to having Aurora lead the way in delivering meaningful change that will build towards a more just and equitable city. I'm also heartened that I think we're going to see some cooperative work with regards to reallocating some of our existing resources towards mental health and homelessness and things of that nature, to be proactive as opposed to always being reactive. I also want to address the comments from, I believe his name was Talib, who is a Ward 4 resident. I just want you to know we're doing more than just working on a carotid hold artery. There's a great deal of work that myself and other council members are putting in to bring forth meaningful change. There's a budget discussion coming up where I think is where a lot of the meat of this topic is really going to be discussed. So I don't want you to think that we're going to pass an ordinance and call it good. We all, I think, understand the gravity of the situation and the sentiment that's out there. So ultimately, this decision does rest with the city manager. I believe that he's done his due diligence to arrive at his decision. So I'm going to go ahead and affirm his choice. And I look forward to continuing to work with Jim and our new chief to make Aurora live up to the challenge of the moment.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
So certainly I would like to echo what Councilmember Marcano has said. I'd also like to refer back to a number of the comments that we've heard tonight, which is that it doesn't seem that any of the options we had before us were folks that are well equipped to make the deep level of structural change that is needed in policing in our city. I do think that we have to recognize that that is going to be a community process and a citywide process, and that no one chief is going to be able to do that on their own or know on their own what to do. And so in that sense, I'm concerned. I don't want people to think that this is the end. I think this is the beginning, or perhaps somewhere in the middle of making the change that we really need to see. And the single choice of a police chief does not end the process that we need to undergo. And so I am going to affirm City Manager Twombly's choice, but with some reservations, and with the expectation that we work hard together as a community and as a council to make the change that is really needed.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been stated. I will say just my personal experience in interviewing all of the candidates, I didn't think there was one clear choice in terms of who I felt was most qualified. I will say there were things that I liked about some of the candidates, for example, being data-driven, examining the inputs to our data. Are we collecting the right data to be able to make more strategic and informed decisions? Examining use of force, policies, and then as well as community policing, and really expanding on that model, creating a vested interest within community and this reciprocity. So I think it's a unique position to be in, to be recruiting in this climate. But some of the benefit is that we got to listen to some of the best practices from chiefs across, or candidates from across the nation. I also want to echo that no one person or no one chief should have the sole power or ability to be all of the things, right? To me, that is an inherent distortion of power. And so I think, when I was thinking through my decision, that was certainly something that was part of it. I know we voted on a policy today. This is a more robust conversation, and definitely when it comes to budget and otherwise, look forward to maintaining the integrity of that conversation with the chief as part of that systemic change. I think, and just having gone through so many appointment processes in this job and in my day job, I know how difficult it is to create systemic change in an interim position, right? And so I think, I have my gripes with, each of the candidates. I too will affirm this decision with reservations, and really, we're at the point where, people are putting their best foot forward to get the job. And I want to let's see how long that lasts. Right. And I'm committed to continuing that accountability. And I think when it comes to structural changes, being able to work with somebody like Vanessa Wilson, who has knowledge, which again, there's pros and cons to that. I look forward to being able to hopefully move a little quicker, considering that there is some history and knowledge of our specific police system. So I have a lot of thoughts, but and I'm sure I'll hear back from constituents one way or the other. But this was not a decision that I made lightly, and I really had to weigh the benefit of being able to work with somebody that we've seen work. That has, in some respect, and to give credit, done some good work, but that I also have had hesitation around how specific incidents were handled. And apologies aside, I want to see that we just continue that ability to work collaboratively and hopefully make some really systemic changes here in Aurora.
Further discussion?
Mayor. Councilmember Hiltz.
Councilmember Hiltz.
I just wanted to say I'm also voting to affirm City Manager Twombly's decision. I think, a couple of things to consider. I think when we're moving forward, this was difficult for many of us, I believe. Commander Dudley is immensely qualified to do this role as well. And I think we are remiss if we don't thank him for his service to the city and for putting his hat in the ring. And it's two choices that offer just a little bit different of a perspective on things. And moving forward, time will tell if we can get where we want to be as a city. Mainly because last week I sat down with one of our city managers and shared this with the Public Safety Committee just for preliminary approval at our last meeting. But we have a lot of changes that are coming up through the Public Safety Committee meeting. A lot of different things, looking at internal structures, everything from discipline to grievance to lobbying to ketamine to the carotid hold ban that we had today. And I think that Vanessa or Chief Wilson will sit down at the table and have those conversations with us. And I think she knows that we mean business when we say that we want to do some reform within the department. And I think Commander Dudley also understood that. And I respect the city manager's choice coming forward, and I'm going to vote for Chief Wilson. But I also just I know there's a lot of, I think, hesitation around some specific incidences, but what I keep coming back to is that she was put in a position where we're able to have reservations, right? We're able to have hesitations about specific incidences because she was put into the interim position and inherited a mess and was given the opportunity to make those decisions that gave us hesitation. In a way that others maybe were not given that same opportunity. And I use that word loosely because that might not be, the greatest thing to be put in that position. But, I think we would be remiss too in not pointing out that a lot of these hesitations come from the fact that she was put into the interim chief position. And we may not have them had she not been put into that position to begin with. And so it comes with the role. So I am going to vote to affirm. I want to thank Commander Dudley and everyone who applied for the position and who came and took the time to interview with this great city. And we have a lot of work to do. And now that we're here at vote time, I plan to set up a meeting and get it on the schedule for tomorrow, or at least get the request in for tomorrow so that we can start getting to work on what's coming down the public safety line. So I thank all my colleagues for your 4 months worth of scheduled out agenda items that we're going to be looking at.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes, I also will vote yes to affirm City Manager Twombly's appointment of Chief Wilson. I want to just, we touched on this before, but I want to emphasize in our city charter, our city manager is the one who makes that appointment. And then we are doing tonight affirming that appointment. I also would like to thank Commander Dudley and the other applicants, but particularly Commander Dudley. I've really enjoyed working with him even before he put himself out there, and APD is fortunate to have him. So thank you for your service to APD and our community. And for Chief Wilson, she was a change agent and very supportive of a lot of reforms that I discussed with her before she was even in the interim chief position. And that's really what I think we need. Yes, no one is perfect, but I find that she's very accessible to me, to my questions, to my concerns, has had some good communication and really open to changes ahead. So I appreciate that, and we'll be voting yes to support city manager's appointment. Thanks.
Further discussion? Seeing none. Just a brief comment that it was a very difficult decision for me between Commander Marcus Dudley, and Interim Chief Vanessa Wilson. And so I think the public ought to know that we had two extraordinary internal choices within the department. The question before us is the approval of the appointment of Interim Chief Vanessa Wilson as the Chief of Police for the Aurora Police Department. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Oh.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Lawson voting no.
Thank you. 18 A, report by the mayor, simply that I continue to work directly with the governor on the establishment of a COVID testing center in the city of Aurora. And the governor has agreed that it is the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment that will be signing the contract and not the city of Aurora. Staff is also reaching out to Arapahoe County and Adams County for their participation, as well as I continue to work with the governor on some variance requests from some of our businesses, such as the Gaylord, in terms of their ability to host small conventions. Reports by council, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that next week, Monday, we're going to have a busy day. We're going to have our Rules Committee reconvene after several months of not meeting, and we have a lot of work to do on creating rules to have our meetings run in an effective way, but also to increase our community engagement. And then for those who don't know, we are actually also having a special meeting. The Rules Committee is 4 to 6, and then at 6:30, a special meeting on the changes with the animal ordinance and discussion on ranging from pit bulls and the dangerous dog ordinance, and just getting more input from our community. So I look forward to that. And please check our website for community meetings that we have. We had our police task force, community police task force meeting last Tuesday. That's posted. We had oil and gas updates and regulations that have been posted. There are a lot of meetings that, even if you can't make it live, that are on our website. So please check that out for additional ways to get more information. Thanks.
Councilmember Berzins.
Oh, thank you. We thought I'd be later. Anyway, I want to say Ward 3 will be having a virtual meeting this month. It'll be on August the 12th at 6:30, and it will be a WebEx meeting. I will be sending that out, putting it on my website, my Facebook page, or you can call the city office and get the numbers on how to get into WebEx. And we will be having our budget manager speak to us about our current finances and the 2021 budget. So I look forward to talking with you again. And number 2, I'd like to invite the writers of the Sentinel to listen to the end of our discussion on working with the protesters to keep our residents, the protesters, and the police safe. The end of our discussion stated that the old permit form that was sent out in our backup was old and outdated and should be thrown away, not used. I think they didn't hear that part. And there was nothing on our discussion about charging fees. And I think they didn't hear that part either. So please go back and listen to that discussion. Thank you.
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say that we had a very successful town hall. I think we had about 45 participants. It had a presentation from WISE from Chris Muller, and then also Marshall Brown presented, and then general updates. So just appreciate everybody that was on the call. Thank you.
Councilmember Gruber.
We have good news. The Air Force has selected Aurora as a potential site for the United States Space Command. We're now going into the evaluation phase, which will run from now until November. The Air Force sent us a questionnaire that we have a team of space experts working with different parts of the community, water, power, communications, and others, to develop answers to all of the questions. We received some challenging news based on our school system in the area, and we're working through that as well. But for the most part, we're still a very strong candidate, and we'll find out near the end of the year whether or not we're going to be on their short list and have them come out for a review.
Councilmember Hiltz.
I have no report, but thank you.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. My next town hall is going to be Thursday, August 20th at 6 p.m. It'll be virtually. To be honest, they're probably going to be virtual for the foreseeable future unless something substantially changes. I'm not comfortable convening my constituents at this time, but the conversation continues. And to my registered neighborhood organizations, I know we haven't been able to meet. And if you haven't been able to meet amongst your groups, please reach out. I would be happy to help organize a way for you all to do a video call, and for members who don't have access to the internet or can't figure it out, how I might be able to support a phone call or, whatever creative way we need to work together in order for you all to continue meeting. Hopefully I can join you all, but please let me know. And then additionally, as you guys may know, I was appointed to the RTV Accountability Committee. Information is kind of slowly coming in on the charge of the group, the process by which decisions will be made. So I've been working diligently to clarify that as much as possible. We had some, it's hard to convene a really big group of folks. So we'll have our first meeting this next Monday, the 10th. I will do my best to keep you all informed. I think we've decided that I'll be regularly reporting to the FSIR committee since it is intergovernmental relations. We'll decide if we need to kick up information to the rest of the city council in our city council updates as we go. So anyways, thank you.
Councilmember Lawson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say, Councilmember Hilton, I had a pretty good town hall meeting last week, so very successful. That will be bringing information about the next one, and that'll be coming forth. Mayor, I do have to say something. The incident that happened on Saturday, I have to say some words. I know that the chief apologized, which I appreciate that. We got to do better in this city. And one of the things at the public safety meeting that I questioned was the use of force and how the use of force, we're 16% of the population here in Aurora, Black people, but 47% is excessive force is used on Black people. We got to do better. And Chief Wilson, I hope that this situation is going to damage these kids for a long time and the trust that they're going to have into the police. We have to do better. We can't continue to travel these roads of racial bias and excessive force, especially against people of color. So I want to say I apologize to that family. As a city official sitting up here, I have to say something because the video is very disturbing, and I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to do something. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to announce that our next Ward 4 Town Hall will be virtual via WebEx and Facebook Live, August 20th at 6:30 p.m. We're going to try to set up some conversations around housing and homelessness in Aurora. So, the current situation, what it could look like in the near future, and the steps we're taking to remedy that, as well as a rundown on our oil and gas rules. So, and I also want to echo Councilmember Lawson's comments that what happened was unacceptable, and I do applaud Chief Wilson for very quickly moving to discuss and reimagine the policies around those kinds of stops. But again, as I mentioned earlier, more needs to be done. Thank you.
Councilmember Coombs.
So my next town hall meeting will be on the 18th of August. It will be online, and much like Councilmember Murillo, it looks like I'll probably continue to have those meetings online at least throughout the rest of the year. We won't be doing in-person meetings just based on what it looks like the situation is going to be with COVID. And I want to echo as well what Councilmember Lawson and Councilmember Marcano have said. I don't want to take up more time discussing it, but that incident was absolutely unacceptable. And we have to do better. And I hope that Chief Wilson is up to that task.
Councilmember Gardner. No report? Very well. Public invited to be heard.
Here we have a handful more, so we'll go ahead and read those. First one, I'll go ahead and get started. We actually missed one. It was for item 13B, but I do want to read it anyway, just so it gets read into the record. This is from Margie Sobey. Good evening. My name is Margie Sobey, and I live in Murphy Creek, Metro District number 3. I am very disturbed to see all the Metro District items on tonight's agenda, but I am most disturbed by this one. Before the pandemic hit, 3 in-person meetings were scheduled for the public to provide input on, apologize guys, were scheduled for the public to provide input on Metro Districts. Those meetings were canceled, and the single virtual meeting that was held contained completely one-sided information about Metro Districts. At the end of that virtual meeting, Vanessa Irvin promised that additional meetings would be held for the public to provide input. Additionally, some council members have said they would hold in-person meetings when that is once again possible and allow balanced information to be presented. After listening to some very good, very thorough, and very lengthy discussions about public input during this evening's study session, I'm horrified to find that discussions about modifying sections of the city code pertaining to special districts and service plans were going to take place at tonight's council meeting without any public input. Surely the financial futures of over 63,000 people who currently live in metro districts or who will live in metro districts in the future are every bit as important as allowing pit bulls in the city of Aurora. There's a special meeting being planned to get public input regarding the pit bull issue, but there was no outreach done to get input before proposing changes to city code regarding special districts and the model service plan. In fact, at the last at-large town hall, I asked when the metro district meetings for public would be held, and I was told that none were scheduled yet. Reading tonight's backup information, I have several concerns and no good way to express those concerns. It is long past the time when the public's voice should be heard about metro districts. We live in metro districts and we're familiar with their positive and negative points, and we want them to succeed. In fact, we need them to succeed. Many Metro District residents, not just from Aurora, but from other cities as well, are meeting regularly to share our real-world experiences and knowledge, and we have learned a great deal about Metro Districts. We just don't want to listen to one side. We learn from all sides of the issues, and we have solid resources available for presentations. I recognize that this ordinance is being introduced tonight, but I implore you not to move forward with it until you've made genuine attempts to involve the public and present balanced information. I believe it will be a violation of public trust if you move forward with this before holding the public meeting that Vanessa Irvin promised the residents of Aurora. You can review the recording of that meeting and hear that promise.
The next one is from Eileen Keeter. I would ask that Mr. Gruber behave in a more professional way, which would be required in these town hall meetings, and refrain from confrontational and uncivil comments during town hall meetings. That goes for everyone, of course, but I have watched Mr. Gruber do this in the last 3 meetings, and I'm personally sick and offended by it. This forum should be respectful to all participating.
Okay, and the next one is from, this is a correction earlier from one we read that just said, is from Ariana. It's, at the end, she should have said reformative justice she said reformative justice when she meant restorative justice. So just a correction there.
The next one's from Allie DeWillis Marcano. Please read this comment, city clerk and staff. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice again. To every single one of you on this conference call tonight, you must know this. If you vote to limit public comment, you are not fit to serve the people of this city. And no matter what stupid rule you put in place, you will not silence the people of this city. We will find ways for our voices to be heard. And if you didn't like the cakes and comments, you probably wouldn't like whatever creative method we have to come up with and get around your useless time limits. And you should know this too. If you vote to limit public comment, I won't have to sit around and twiddle my thumbs watching these meetings anymore. Instead, I'll spend those hours on the doors, on the phones, doing whatever I can to vote you out of office. Regardless of party or the pin you wear or the favors you traded, I will dedicate my life to ending your political career, and I will not be alone. And if my tone isn't clear enough while this is being read out loud by someone else, I'm looking directly at you, Mayor Pro Tem and at-large member Hilt, when I say this. I regret ever supporting you, You've betrayed the city and the ideals you claim to support. You rose up from public comment and now you want to silence it. Shameful. Finally, I'm sorry to hear you are leaving City Clerk Ruger. Your dedication to making people heard has not gone unnoticed. Hearing your words crack as you were required to read out loud the last words of Elijah McClain was one of the most human, important moments in the city's history. Thank you for your service to Aurora. As always, my comments are my own and do not reflect the opinion of my spouse, my employer, or my cats. Good night.
And the next one, I apologize, it is from Ariana from Ward 5, and I will make that correction when I read this. I am disgusted by the culture of Aurora City Council, particularly the lack of leadership and a commitment to misinformation exhibited by certain members and the mayor. On the July 20th council meeting, council members Lostens, Coombs, Murillo, and Marcano had to repeatedly correct Councilmember Gruber on his statements of misinformation that he espoused to both the public and the council. CM Gruber seemed committed to silencing CM Lawson and misrepresenting her proposed ordinance on drinks for kids meals by fear-mongering and portraying her and the ordinance as anti-business. I am thankful to the aforementioned members who called out CM Gruber's false, bad faith statements and his unwillingness to speak with CM Lawson about the ordinance she is sponsoring. And I am disappointed by Mayor Mike Kaufman's refusal to set the record straight on the basic facts here. Not only is this harmful to council as it erodes public trust in their ability to know about their own jobs and what they vote on, it wastes everyone's time and leads to general confusion among the public. And this is not an isolated incident, it's a pattern. A few sessions ago, CM Gruber pushed false, misleading information on Facebook regarding CM Marcano's proposed emergency ordinance on housing occupancy. Also, Gruber and a few other council members did this with the protests in Elijah McClain vigil. Instead of hearing out their fellow council members and public commenters who were actually at the protests and vigil, they expressed unwavering support for APD and take APD's accounts of use of force as the whole truth instead of a piece of the truth. This is disturbing to say the least because once again, this past weekend, APD exhibited their utter incompetence, bias against Black people, and impulse towards violence against citizens. They forced 4 children face down on the ground, handcuffed 2 of them in order to stop a vehicle they suspected of being stolen. However, the actual vehicle reported stolen had an out-of-place license plate and was a motorcycle, not a car/SUV like that of the victims who were wrongfully detained. How can APD be so wrong in the most basic, important details of their job? How can they be so afraid of a violin vigil? Who does their incompetence and constant fear protect and serve? It's certainly not the people. We've seen them protect their own officers who pass out drunk behind the wheel of the squad car while they treat citizens' lives with utter disregard, if not hostilely. That is not public safety. How are the people supposed to have any amount of trust in APD and the council members who refuse to question APD even in their worst moments like this? We're protesting and we're waiting, but we cannot wait forever on a city council and police department that refuse to acknowledge their wrongdoing and to enact meaningful change. This is why we call for defunding the police, because while some citizens feel safer around the police, we know that many others do not. We can do better for everyone if instead of fear-mongering and accepting the status quo, we just open our minds and engage in good faith what justice actually is to be done. I challenge the council members, the mayor, and my fellow Aurora citizens to sincerely learn about restorative justice.
The next one's from Roberto Bruno. There's no excuse to put small children on the hot pavement so their skin burns. I'd like to know what the reasoning is here and what is the reprimand has been offered or been for the officer's bad judgment and bad training. Or is it just Aurora Police Department at it again when it comes to Black skin? Please let me know when the next election is. Don't hesitate to contact me. I'd love to speak with you one-on-one about this. And there's a link to the 9 News article titled Aurora PD Mistakenly IDs Stolen Car, Briefly Detains Family and Kids.
All right, the next one is from Michael. Oh, yesterday, PD officers falsely conducted a guns out traffic stop on Brittany Gillum and arrested her along with her young children. This is despite the vehicle being a motorcycle, not a car, and being in the wrong state. Why was a woman who had committed no crimes met with guns drawn, yet when 2 men tried to run down hundreds of protesters, they were greeted cheerfully and sent on their way? This is in reference to Kyle Falkinson and Gregory Goodenough trying to run over protesters on July 25th.
The next one is from Amanda Kobari. Hello, I'm an Aurora resident from Ward 4. I wish the council would press APD to arrest the Jeep driver who drove into the crowd of protesters at the Elijah McClain protest. No matter if you believe it is wrong or right to block a highway as a form of protest, I think we can agree it's not a crime that should be met with a death sentence by a civilian in the streets. We are sending a message to other people that driving into crowds of protesters is okay. Thank you.
Okay. Give me 1 second to get organized here. Just hit the numbers. Several more in there. All right. So the next one is from Roberto Bororo. There's no excuse to put small children on the hot pavement, so they're, oh, sorry, we just read that one. Okay, I think we're good then. So then let me move on. I read this. Okay. Apologize. Give me 1 second. There's just a few more comments. I'm just pulling them up. Okay, I'm wrong. That is the end of the comments. I think we're all done.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye, Steve.
Bye, Steve.